Chapter 16:14. Not only the Vanga League, but the Palace Master of Palace Fengtian also did not want the two deacons to return to the Vanga League alive. After all, the two of them were powerful enemies of the Palace of Fengtian. If they escaped from him alive, it would be like releasing a tiger back to the mountain. There would be endless trouble in the future. Finally, Ning Mingi and the Palace Master of Palace Fengtian walked together. There were only 2 meters between them. Both of them were very vigilant. Ning Mingi said, "When I say 3, let's go together." The Palace Master of Palace Fengtian nodded. 1, 2, 3. As soon as Ning Mingi said 3, the two waved their hands. The two deacons and the mother and children flew toward each other at the same time. Almost at the same time. Their eyes were filled with murderous intent. Ning Mingi waved his right hand. The power of the false god broke out of his body and rushed toward the mother and children with murderous intent. At the same time, he grabbed the air with his left hand. He wanted to send the two deacons into the space divine item. However, the Palace Master of Palace Fengtian also attacked at the same time. The power of the false god roared and rushed toward the two deacons. He waved his other hand and wanted to send the mother and children into the space divine item as well. Obviously, they all had the same plan in mind. Seeing such tacit cooperation, they themselves were somewhat astonished. But in an instant, the two of them came to their senses and sent the two deacons and the mother and children into their respective space divine items. Then, the two of them attacked the other party's power of the false god at the same time. Boom! Accompanied by 2 loud sounds, the two of them each took a step back and the power of the false god dissipated. However, after defeating Ning Mingi's power of the false god, the Palace Master of Palace Fengtian immediately charged toward Ning Mingi. Terrifying divine power exploded, shaking the void and the earth. Now that the mother and children were safe and sound, he could go all out and fight against the Eternal Alliance. But Ning Mingi did not dare to. Because of Chang Shui. Chang Shui was terrifying enough to wipe out the entire Vanga League. So, seeing the Palace Master of Palace Fengtian attack, he immediately chose to escape and meet up with Zhao Tai. But at this moment, Willow Tree, who had been accumulating power for a long time, suddenly attacked. Pale snow in his hand gave off a world-destroying sharpness as he slashed through the air. A sword chi flew out and slashed toward Ning Mingi. Zhao Tai Lai, Zhao Tai Lai, Zhao Tai Lai, and Zhao Tai Lai, Zhao Tai Lai. The sword chi streaked across the void and headed for a huge mountain in the distance. With a loud bang, the huge mountain collapsed on the spot. At the same time, seeing Ning Mingi abandon him, Zhao Tai Lai was a little annoyed. He didn't dare to stop in the slightest and immediately turned around to flee. Don't even think about escaping. The Palace Master of Palace Fengtian Yu Zhao of Fengtian Yu also. Don't worry about Zhao Tai Lai for now. The spatial divine object is more important. Quickly find the spatial divine object and destroy it. Qin Feiyong secretly shouted. Lu Mu quivered. That's right. As long as they destroyed Ning Mingi's godly item, the Vanga League members would not be able to hide anymore. Immediately, his divine sense spread out in all directions. In just an instant, he had captured a spatial divine object in the void ahead of him. This spatial divine item was rushing towards Zhao Tai Lai. Obviously, Ning Mingi was using a spatial divine item to save Zhao Tai Lai. Palace Master, don't worry about Zhao Tai Lai for now. Trap the spatial divine item. Willow Tree shouted. When the Palace Master of the Imperial Conferring Palace heard this, he immediately released his spiritual force. In the meantime, his quasi-divinity power surged out. A huge divine power enchantment appeared out of nowhere. The Willow Tree smiled coldly and directly rushed into the barrier. His divine sense firmly locked onto the spatial divine item, and then he slashed at it. Clang! Immediately, sparks flew everywhere. A deafening sound rang out within the barrier. The next moment, a stone pagoda that had been split in half appeared out of thin air and fell to the ground. This was Ning Mingi's divine spatial item. Immediately after, a large number of people appeared in the divine power enchantment in a sorry state. Densely packed. There were adults, old people, and children. There were quasi-divinities, combat emperors, and even people below the combat emperor level. Zhao Shiming and Ning Yifeng were also inside. At a glance, there were at least 50 to 60,000. This meant that the Vanga League's people were all inside this stone pagoda. Let's see how you can hide now. Willow Tree sneered and turned to look at Qin Feiyang and Yu Huang. Seeing that Qin Feiyang and Yu Huang were already standing outside the barrier, he immediately exited the barrier and stood beside Qin Feiyang. He released his divine sense and covered all directions. Although the Vanga League's people were forced out, the Tianyang Empire's people were still hiding in the dark, so he couldn't be careless. Break for me! Just as Willow Tree exited the barrier, an angry roar rang out. It was Ning Mingi. He flew out from the crowd with a gloomy face. He didn't expect that even the divine spatial item would be split in half. He was undoubtedly even more afraid of Chong Shui. Boom! He attacked the divine power enchantment. Boom! The divine power enchantment set up by the palace master of the celestial palace shattered on the spot. Ning Mingi immediately shouted to a young man, "Ningyi Yang, take your brother and everyone else and leave." The young man was about 1.8 meters tall and looked about 27 or 28 years old. He was slender and had an extraordinary appearance. His aura had also reached the quasi-divinity level. But at this moment, his face was also full of panic. Hearing Ning Mingi's words, he immediately waved his hand and the power of the quasi-divinity appeared. He swept up everyone below the quasi-divinity level and broke through the sky like lightning. "Yu Huang, go and kill them. However, I want Ningyi Feng, Ningyi Yang, Zhao Shiming, Great Deacon, and Second Deacon alive." Qin Feiyang transmitted his voice. From the way Ning Mingi addressed him, Ningyi Yang was also his son and would be of great use to him. As for the Great Deacon and Second Deacon, they couldn't participate in the battle because their cultivation had been destroyed and they were also in the crowd. Yu Huang laughed and immediately disappeared into the void, silently flying towards Ningyi Yang and the others. Humph! At the same time, the palace master of the Palace of Heaven's Submission snorted and waved his hand. Dozens of figures appeared next to him. There were men and women. Their bodies were emitting a terrifying divine power. These were the quasi-divinities of the Palace of Heaven's Submission. Kill! Don't leave a single one alive! The palace master of the Palace of Heaven's Submission shouted and took the lead to attack Ning Mingi. The battle sword in his hand gave off a destructive aura. Clang! Ning Mingi waved his hand and a red broadsword appeared. The broadsword was 3 feet long and 5 fingers wide. There was a fire phoenix engraved on the handle and it seemed to be made of lava. It flashed with a dazzling light. Divine Phoenix Broadsword. Willow Tree's eyes trembled. Is it very powerful? Qin Feiyang asked. Willow Tree said, very powerful. I heard that it was passed down from the previous leaders of the Vanga League. Passed down? Qin Feiyang was taken aback. His eyes lit up as he stared at the Divine Phoenix Broadsword. He remembered that the mysterious man in the Soul-Sealing Valley said that the first leader of the Vanga League had passed down a divine weapon. It could automatically revive and protect its owner. Could it be this Divine Phoenix Broadsword? While Qin Feiyang was puzzled, Ning Mingi grabbed the Divine Phoenix Broadsword and charged towards the Palace Master of the Palace of Heaven's Submission. At the same time, he shouted, "Follow me and stop the people of the Palace of Heaven's Submission. Buy time for Ningyi Yang and the others." Yes. A group of people behind him shouted. There were a total of 56 people. Each of them had a powerful aura as they charged towards the people of the Palace of Heaven's Submission. Zhao Tailai also charged back. He also had a divine weapon in his hand. It was also a battle blade. Its entire body was pitch black, and there was a skull on the hilt. It was emitting a gloomy and cold aura. Dark Demon Broadsword. This divine weapon is comparable to the sky-breaking staff. Young master, we must snatch it, including the divine phoenix broadsword in Ning Mingi's hands. Willow Tree said excitedly. Qin Feiyang's mouth twitched. This guy wants to snatch a divine weapon as soon as he sees one. This guy must be addicted to robbing divine weapons. Boom! Clang! Crack! The two sides finally clashed. A chaotic battle began. This was not a small fight. It was a group of fake gods fighting. One could imagine how magnificent the scene was. All that could be seen were divine weapons, divine arts, and fighting souls. The void was shattering and the sky was shaking. The desert was rolling like an ocean, and yellow sand covered the sky. Clang! Clang! The battle between Ning Mingi and the palace master of the Palace of Heaven's Submission was the most intense. They charged into the clouds, shattering the void. The palace master of the Palace of Heaven's Submission sword emitted tens of thousands of sword chi. It was comparable to the divine phoenix broadsword in Ning Mingi's hands. What kind of sword is that? Qin Feiyang's eyes lit up. At first, he did not pay attention to the sword, because before, the sword did not display such terrifying power. That is the Azure Light Sword. It is said that it is on the same level as the divine phoenix broadsword. Willow Tree said in a low voice. This Black Tortoise world is really a magical place. In the outside world, it is harder to obtain a divine weapon than to reach the heavens. But here there are so many, Qin Feiyang said. These divine weapons are not all from the Black Tortoise world. A large portion of them were obtained from the miracles outside and brought in by others. So, if you really want to say, there are more divine weapons in the divine ruins, not the Black Tortoise world, Willow Tree said. Qin Feiyang nodded in realization. On the other side, Ning Yang and the rest of the Vanga League had already escaped thousands of miles away. It should be safe here, Ning Yang muttered. He turned around and looked at the battlefield behind him. He looked at Ning Feng and said, "You continue to lead everyone deeper. I will go and help Father and the rest." "Be careful," Ning Feng warned. "I know." Ning Yang nodded. However, before he finished speaking, he suddenly felt a tearing pain in his lower abdomen. His cultivation quickly dissipated. What happened? Ning Yang was surprised. He looked down and saw a snake scale piercing through his lower abdomen. Blood spurted out like a fountain. "You dare to ignore me? Damn it!" A cruel laugh sounded in front of them. Ning Yang and the others instantly inclined their heads. They only saw Baiming Yu Huang appearing in the air. That snake scale also returned to her body. "Why are you here?" Ning Yang was shocked and angry. "Of course, it is to take care of you." Yu Huang laughed. "Damn it, let's go." Ning Yang's roar shook the sky. Ning Feng and the rest immediately turned around and fled in fear. At the top of the clouds, Ning Mingi was shocked when he heard Yu Huang's roar. He immediately looked down. When he saw Yu Huang, his expression changed. "Zhao Tailai, go and deal with Yu Huang." He roared at Zhao Tailai below. "Li Yuan, don't let anyone from the Vanga League leave the battlefield." Feng Tian Palace Master shouted. "Yes." Chapter 16-15. You're courting death. Zhao Tailai's eyes flashed fiercely as he grabbed the dark demon blade and slashed at Li Yuan. The terrifying blade almost tore the sky apart. Li Yuan's expression changed as he quickly dodged. "Not good." Ning Mingi and Zhao Tailai have the divine phoenix blade and the dark demon blade. The 10 deacons of the Vanga League, other than the Grand Deacon and the Second Deacon, all have divine artifacts. But Feng Tian Palace, other than the Palace Master, Li Yuan and the other elders don't have any divine artifacts. If this continues, Feng Tian Palace will be at a disadvantage. Qin Feiyang said. It's not that Li Yuan and the others don't have any divine artifacts, but they were all taken by you. If the 9 palace sword formation is still in their hands, it's hard to say who will win this battle. Willow Tree smiled bitterly. Qin Feiyang was stunned and said awkwardly, "Other than the 9 palace sword formation, they don't have any other divine artifacts? And the Vice Palace Master of Feng Tian Palace, why haven't I seen him?" "There's another divine artifact. It's said that it's on the same level as the Sky-Breaking Rod and the Dark Demon Blade. This divine artifact is in the hands of the Vice Palace Master. The Vice Palace Master of Feng Tian Palace is none other than the Palace Master's wife. Her Qi Si has been destroyed, and like the Grand Deacon, she can't participate in the battle for a while," Willow Tree said. "I see." Qin Feiyang nodded. During their conversation, Li Yuan nearly lost his life to Zhao Tailai's Black Devil Manic Saber several times. Without divine artifacts, he could only use divine arts to restrain him. But this was not a long-term plan at all. After all, Zhao Tailai also had divine arts. Facing an overwhelming advantage, Li Yuan would only become more and more embarrassed. Li Yuan, catch! Suddenly, the Palace Master of Feng Tian Palace shouted. Li Yuan raised his head and saw a beam of 5-colored divine light shoot down from the sky like lightning. Surprisingly, it was also a battle sword. But it was very thin and soft, as thin as a cicada's wing. That's it. 5 exquisite sword. Willow Tree's eyes lit up. Qin Feiyong looked at the 5-colored exquisite sword with a strange light in his eyes. Do you want to snatch it? Willow Tree asked. You're too wicked. Now that we are partners with Fengtian Palace, do you think it's appropriate for you to think that way? Qin Feiyong said unhappily. Tsk. Nice words, but your eyes have already betrayed you. Willow Tree said in disdain. Qin Feiyong coughed dryly and said with a dark face, I don't know what you're talking about. Anyway, we have to focus on the overall situation. Keep pretending, keep pretending. Those who don't know would really think that you're a good person. Willow Tree rolled his eyes. Qin Feiyong looked extremely embarrassed. In the meantime, seeing the 5 colors exquisite sword, Li Yuan's eyes lit up. He immediately rushed into the sky and grabbed the 5 colors exquisite sword. In an instant, he erased the blood contract inside and dripped his blood on it to claim ownership. Then, the power of the false god flowed into the sword, and the 5 colors exquisite sword immediately released a dazzling 5 colors divine light. The sharpness covered the sky and covered the earth. Zhao Tai Lai. Today, either you die or I die. Li Yuan roared angrily, grabbed the 5 colors exquisite sword, and pounced towards Zhao Tai Lai. Clang clang clang. The two of them fought crazily, and also killed their way into the sky. The destructive aura rolled in all directions. While Zhao Tai Lai was fighting, he shouted to the deacons, I can't leave anymore, quickly go and save everyone. Hold him back, even if you die. Li Yuan shouted angrily, then looked at Qin Feiyong and urged, Brother Qin, what are you still doing? All the deacons have divine weapons, and the people on our side are not their opponents. Hurry up and let Willow Tree make a move, or you can return the 9 palace sword formation to us first. You want to take back what is in his hands? Do you think that's possible? I don't think he has any intention of making a move. Zhao Tai Lai sneered. What do you mean? Li Yuan asked. Can't you see? He wants to reap the benefits while we're both injured. If you have any awareness, you should join forces with the Vanga League and get rid of him first. Zhao Tai Lai shouted. Li Yuan's expression froze. Was Zhao Tai Lai telling the truth? Otherwise, why hadn't Qin Feiyong asked Willow Tree to make a move yet? The 6 elders did not appear either. Seeing that Li Yuan had been bewitched by Zhao Tai Lai, the palace master of Fengtian Palace quickly shouted, Li Yuan, don't doubt Brother Qin, you must believe him. Li Yuan's gaze trembled, and he quickly came back to his senses. He slashed his sword at Zhao Tai Lai and sneered, You're still trying to drive a wedge between us, what a fool. It's up to you to believe it or not. Anyway, if the Vanga League disappears today, the Fengtian Palace will cease to exist as well. Zhao Tai Lai sneered. Sigh. Qin Feiyong sighed. Why are you sighing? Willow Tree was puzzled. Zhao Tai Lai was also suspicious. Qin Feiyong raised his head and looked at Zhao Tai Lai, saying, I actually wanted the Vanga League to jump around a little longer, because once I asked Willow Tree to make a move, the Vanga League will be destroyed in an instant. But you didn't appreciate my kindness. Zhao Tai Lai's heart sank. Since you're so eager to die, I'll fulfill your wish. Qin Feiyong sneered, and the 6 elders appeared out of thin air. Clang! The 6 elders scanned the battlefield coldly. Battle swords appeared one after another, and a murderous aura filled the air. Ning Mingi's body tensed up, and he quickly shouted, Brother Qin, let's talk nicely. There's nothing to talk about. Willow Tree, kill Zhao Tai Lai. 6 elders, help the elders of the Fengtian Palace and kill the 8 deacons of the Vanga League. Qin Feiyong shouted. Yes. The 6 elders bowed and immediately charged toward the deacons with their battle swords. Willow Tree didn't move. He sent a message, Young Lord, I have to stay by your side to prevent the Tianyang Empire from ambushing you. It's okay. I'll be careful. I'll enter the castle as soon as they appear. Qin Feiyong said. All right then, be careful. Lu Mu nodded helplessly. Then, he brought Song Xueqi's sword into the clouds, heading straight for Zhao Tai Lai. Damn it! Zhao Tai Lai fell into panic in an instant. He was afraid that he wasn't Willow Tree, but Song Xueqi. Brother Qin, I agree to your conditions. I'll give you the herbs of the Vanga League and this divine phoenix blade. I only hope that you won't interfere with our battle with the Fengtian Palace. Ning Mingi was also extremely anxious as he roared. The palace master of the Fengtian Palace also became nervous. The overall strength of the Fengtian Palace and the Vanga League was similar. Therefore, Qin Feiyang was a key factor. No matter which side Qin Feiyang joined, the balance would be broken. In other words, the side that Qin Feiyang joined would be the side that would win. If you had agreed earlier, I would have considered it. But it's too late now. Qin Feiyang shook his head. Bastard! Ning Mingi was so angry that he was going crazy. He frantically revived the divine phoenix saber. It was as if he did not want to live anymore. The Vanga League will be destroyed today. The palace master of the Fengtian Palace sneered. Their strength was on par with each other. However, Zhao Tailai's heart was burning with anxiety. Although Li Yuan was only an elder of the Fengtian Palace, his cultivation had reached stage 10 false god. Just Li Yuan alone was enough to give him a headache. Now that Willow Tree was involved, how could he win? Suddenly, a murderous look flashed in his eyes as he looked at the 8 deacons and false gods. Suddenly, his eyes locked onto a man in black. This man was also a member of the Vanga League. But suddenly, the burly man's eyes glazed over, and he abandoned his opponent and went straight for the Willow Tree. Willow Tree was stunned. He turned around and looked at the man. His eyes were filled with murderous intent. You're asking for it. But in the next moment, he noticed that there was something wrong with the man's eyes. It was exactly the same as when Wang Yu'er was controlled by the pagoda master. Could it be puppet technique? Retreat! Willow Tree's body trembled and he roared. As he roared, he turned around and dashed toward Qin Feiyang without hesitation. What? Everyone present was startled by Willow Tree's roar. When they saw the expression on the burly man's face, it wasn't just the people from Heaven Bestowal Palace. Even the people from the Everlasting Alliance were shocked. In the next moment, both sides stopped fighting at the same time, turned around and fled in different directions. Only Ning Mingi and the palace master were still fighting. Are they going to self-destruct? In the distance, Yu Huang muttered to himself. However, this had nothing to do with it, because it was thousands of miles away from the battlefield. Although the false god's self-destruction would also affect this place, it still had time to escape, so it was not a threat to it. Ning Yiyang and the others were also frantically fleeing. Yu Huang glanced at the group of people, sneered, and chased after them like lightning. Its body, which was originally more than half a meter long, expanded in the wind. In an instant, a giant python that was hundreds of feet long appeared out of nowhere. Following closely, it opened its mouth wide, and a scarlet tongue shot out from its mouth. In an instant, hundreds of people were wrapped up and sucked into its mouth. You damned beast! The senior deacon and the second deacon roared. If their sea of qi was not destroyed, how could they allow Yu Huang to do whatever he wanted? Self-destruction. Qin Feiyang looked at the burly man in black with a slightly gloomy gaze. He had already expected this situation. And he also expected that there would definitely be more than one false god who would self-destruct in this battle. Previously, he did not let Willow Tree and the 6 elders take action because he was afraid that the false gods of the Vanga League would self-destruct. Because once Willow Tree took action, facing Chang Shui, the people of the Vanga League would definitely be desperate. What would a desperate person not do? However, he would have to face this situation sooner or later. But to be honest, he was really powerless to stop the self-destruction. Clang! Rumble! At the top of the clouds, Ning Mingi and the palace master of Fengtian Palace were really angry and turned a blind eye to the burly man's self-destruction. When Zhao Tailai saw him, he hurriedly shouted, "Leader, where there is life, there is hope. Let's go!" Ning Mingi glanced at the burly man with a stomach full of anger and grievance. He put away the divine phoenix saber, turned around, and fled without looking back. Don't even think about leaving. The palace master of Fengtian Palace shouted and chased after him. Don't even think about it. Zhao Tailai roared. Another middle-aged burly man rushed to the sky and flew toward the palace master of Fengtian Palace. His eyes were the same as the black-clothed man's, empty and lifeless. It was obvious. This person was also controlled by the puppet technique. How cruel. He didn't even let go of his own people. Qin Feiyang's eyes were full of disgust. Chapter 16:16. Under the vice leader's control, one chased after Willow Tree while the other chased after the palace master of the Fengtian Palace. Willow Tree and the palace master of the Fengtian Palace were the biggest threats to them. Willow Tree shouted anxiously, "Young master, quickly think of a way. Otherwise they will escape." It was obvious. The vice leader would not let the two men self-destruct. If they self-destructed now, his Vanga League members would not be able to escape. Self-destructing one's physical body was different from using battle arts and fighting souls. Battle arts and fighting souls, including divine arts, could be controlled by the master. However, no one could control self-destructing. Once someone self-destructed, it did not matter if they were friend or foe, they would be injured. Especially in a large-scale battle like this. If any fake god self-destructed, both sides would be injured. However, even though they knew that the two men would not self-destruct, Qin Feiyang and the rest did not dare to chase after them. If they chased after them, what if the vice leader was driven to desperation and controlled the two men to self-destruct? The consequences would be unimaginable. Therefore, the vice leader took advantage of this and used the two men to delay Qin Feiyang and the rest so that his Vanga League members could escape. Qin Feiyang frowned. It was not easy to seize this opportunity. How could he let the Vanga League members escape? Suddenly, he raised his head and looked at the palace master of the Fengtian Palace in surprise. Facing the middle-aged man who could self-destruct at any time, the palace master of the Fengtian Palace was not afraid at all. He continued to chase after Ning Mingyi. What was going on? Why was the palace master of the Fengtian Palace not retreating? Could it be that he was so angry that he lost his mind? But that was impossible. As the palace master of the Fengtian Palace and the overlord of the Black Tortoise world, how could he lose his mind because of this? Wait, could it be? Qin Feiyang seemed to have thought of something and his eyes lit up. He looked at Li Yuan and the rest and shouted, "Come to me now." Li Yuan and the others were stunned when they heard this, and when they recovered from their shock, they didn't hesitate to flash towards Qin Feiyang like bolts of lightning. As for the 6 great elders, they were already flying towards Qin Feiyang when they saw that the situation was not good. Willow Tree, hold that black-clothed man back. At the same time, Qin Feiyang secretly said something to Willow Tree and then entered the castle. Inside the castle, everyone had already woken up from their cultivation. Seeing Qin Feiyang come in, they all had worried looks. "Don't worry, I can handle it." Qin Feiyang smiled and comforted her. He looked at Ling Yunfei and said, "Send everyone into your spatial divine item." After saying that, he turned around and walked to the front of the altar. He put the Netherworld Devil Flame, the Pill Furnace, the Pill Scripture, and everything else he could take away into his Chengkuan bag. In the meantime, Ling Yunfei also sent everyone, all the beasts, including Mu Xingkong, into the spatial divine item. Ling Yunfei walked to Qin Feiyang's side and asked, "What are you going to do?" "The Vanga League people will definitely self-destruct. The palace master of Fengtian Palace is now chasing after Ning Mingyi, and is not afraid of the middle-aged man's self-destruction. It must be because his spatial divine item can withstand the self-destruction of the pseudo-god. However, it's too late for Li Yuan and the others to meet up with the palace master of Fengtian Palace. So we have to let these people stay in the castle for the time being," Qin Feiyang said. Ling Yunfei nodded. Qin Feiyang flashed again and appeared in the void outside. The 6 great elders, Li Yuan, and the others had already arrived. Qin Feiyang looked at the group of people and said, "Now I'll send you to my castle, but you can't relax and come out to kill the enemy at any time." "Understood." The group nodded. With a wave of Qin Feiyang's hand, the group of people suddenly disappeared. Subsequently, Qin Feiyang stepped on the phantom steps and rushed to meet up with Willow Tree. In the blink of an eye, the middle-aged man rushed into the sky and blocked Ning Mingyi's path, blocking the palace master of Fengtian Palace. "You're courting death." The palace master of Fengtian Palace smiled coldly. The azure light sword in his hand shone brightly and slashed towards the middle-aged man. Seeing this, Zhao Tai anxiously shouted, "Palace master, hurry!" He could control the middle-aged man to self-destruct at any time, but Ning Mingyi was still in front of him. If the middle-aged man self-destructed, then Ning Mingyi would not be able to escape death. "Don't worry about me, let them self-destruct." Ning Mingi's face was gloomy as he shouted. This? Zhao Tailai's face was stunned. I still have armor, so I can still save my life. Hurry! Ning Mingi shouted. Zhao Tailai gritted his teeth and controlled the puppet technique. Seeing that the middle-aged man was about to die under the azure light sword, a destructive aura suddenly rushed out from his body. And at the same time, the black-clothed man behind Willow Tree also rushed out a destructive aura. Obviously, he was controlling the two of them to self-destruct at the same time. Young master! Willow Tree shouted as he desperately ran towards Qin Feiyong. Boom! Suddenly, accompanied by two ear-splitting loud sounds, the two men's bodies exploded in the air at the same time. Waves of destructive energy immediately surged out and rushed in all directions with an earth-shattering momentum. The air wave swept over, and Willow Tree spat out a mouthful of blood on the spot. His back was lacerated and blood gushed out. But he didn't even frown. Instead, he used the impact of the airwaves to speed up and rush towards Qin Feiyong. As soon as the two met, Qin Feiyong immediately brought Willow Tree into the ancient castle. At the same time, at the top of the clouds, when the middle-aged man self-destructed, the palace master of Fengtian Palace pursed his lips in disdain and disappeared in an instant. In front of Ning Mingi, a white armor immediately appeared on his body and quickly recovered, shining with dazzling divine light. Obviously, this was also a divine artifact. But even with the protection of the armor, he was blown away by the airwaves on the spot, and blood gushed out of his mouth. And the gaps of the armor were also spurting out blood. From this it could be seen. His body had also suffered a fatal injury. But he didn't care about his injuries and rushed to meet up with Zhao Tailai and the others. Humph! The palace master of Fengtian Palace snorted from his nose. He controlled the space divine artifact and broke through layers of wind and waves, following behind Ning Mingi. At the same time, Qin Feiyong also controlled the ancient castle and chased after Ning Mingi and the others. After taking a healing pill, Willow Tree stood next to Qin Feiyong and stared at Ning Mingi and the others on the screen. His eyes flashed with a shocking cold light. This was the second time he had almost died under the self-destruction of the Vanga League. Unforgivable. Fuck, they really self-destructed. Then, he looked at Yu Huang. Hearing the movement behind him, he cursed angrily and immediately sped up. He spat out the snake's forked tongue and rolled up the senior deacon, the second deacon, Ning Yifeng, Zhao Shiming, and Ning Yang. Then, he turned on the escape mode without looking back. As for the others, he didn't care. Rumble. The self-destruction of the two men was like the end of the world. The void collapsed and the desert sank. The destructive airwaves were earth-shattering. The group of fake gods of the Vanga League, including Zhao Tailai, used all their strength. However, the waves of air surged even faster. In the blink of an eye, it spread thousands of miles away. They were still swept by the airwaves. One by one, they were sent flying on the spot with blood all over their bodies. Fortunately, they were far enough away now. Fortunately, their cultivation was strong enough. They were all fake gods. Otherwise they would have died. However, those who had fled with Ning Yang were not so lucky. Although they were very far away from the center of the explosion and were running for their lives, their cultivation was still too weak. The airwaves swept past Zhao Tailai and the others and went straight to them. Leader, save us! Feeling the rolling airwaves, the group of people shouted in panic, their hearts full of despair. Zhao Tailai and the others who were sent flying by the airwaves also rushed to rescue after stabilizing their bodies. However, in the end, it was too late. A group of people was drowned by the airwaves one after another. Ah! Accompanied by shrill screams, tens of thousands of people's bodies were shattered on the spot, and blood dyed the sky red. Damn it! Qin Feiyong, Fengtian Palace, I swear that I will never let you go. Ning Mingi roared, gritting his teeth and cracking his eyes. When you slaughtered my Fengtian Palace, why didn't I see you show mercy? Now you know pain? However, their death has nothing to do with me and Qin Feiyong. It was you who killed them because you controlled those two to self-destruct and killed them. But at this moment, the Fengtian Palace Master appeared from the space divine object, murderous intent overflowing from his body. You caught up so quickly? And you are not injured at all. When the group of people saw the Fengtian Palace Master, they panicked. Injured? Are you kidding me? I have a space divine object. How can I be injured? As long as my space divine object is still there, no matter how many of you self-destruct, it will not affect me. On the contrary, you are the ones who were seriously injured by your own self-destruction. Now, do you still dare to self-destruct? In fact, I really hope that you all will self-destruct, so that I don't have to do it myself. The Fengtian Palace Master sneered. Ning Mingi and the others' faces were gloomy. Yes. The other party had a space divine object, so self-destruction was useless. However, if they fought head-on, Qin Feiyang had the Changshui in his hands, they would die. What should they do? It's all Qin Feiyang's fault. If he and Willow Tree didn't use the Changshui to destroy our space divine object, we wouldn't be in such a sorry state. A false god roared in anger. What's the use of saying this now? Before Qin Feiyang and the others catch up, let's kill the Fengtian Palace Master and steal his space divine object. With the space divine object, they can't do anything to us. Zhao Tailai said angrily. Yes. Qin Feiyang is only a 6-star combat emperor. He won't be able to get here so quickly with the space divine object. Kill him quickly. The third deacon shouted. The group of people immediately turned around and charged toward the Fengtian Palace Master with murderous intent in their eyes. Kill me? The Fengtian Palace Master smiled disdainfully and disappeared in front of the group of people. Damn it! Come out if you have the guts. Why are you hiding? Zhao Tailai roared immediately. The Fengtian Palace Master ignored him and stood in front of the group of people with the space divine object. He wasn't stupid enough to fight with so many false gods in the Vanga League alone. There was no need to take the risk now. Chapter 16-17. The people of the Everlasting Alliance were truly at their wits' end. Escape. The Palace Master of Fengtian Palace would definitely intercept them. Not escape? Once Qin Feiyang and the others arrived, there would be no way out. What should they do? Zhao Tailai's eyes flickered as he turned to look at Ning Mingi and transmitted his voice. Alliance Master, take everyone and escape. I'll stay and stall them. You? Ning Mingi was shocked. Zhao Tailai sighed. Someone has to be sacrificed. I have the Black Demon Blade. I should be able to stall for a while. Ning Mingi said. No, we have to go together. Alliance Master, why are you still so indecisive at this time? We have no other way out now. We have to go as far as we can. Zhao Tailai roared secretly. Ning Mingi lowered his head and remained silent. Zhao Tailai said, I don't have any other requests. After you escape, help me save my daughter. She's the only thing I care about in this world. Ning Mingi raised his head and looked at Zhao Tailai. Go. Zhao Tailai urged. Ning Mingi gritted his teeth, looked at Zhao Tailai, and said word by word, From now on, your daughter is my daughter. As long as I'm alive, I won't let her suffer any grievances. Thank you. Zhao Tailai said. Follow me. Ning Mingi roared, turned around, and chased after Yu Huang like lightning. Because his two sons, Zhao Shiming, as well as the Great Deacon and the Second Deacon, were still in Yu Huang's hands. The Third Deacon and the others glanced at Zhao Tailai and did not hesitate any longer. They turned around and chased after Ning Mingi. Clang! But at this time, the Palace Master of Fengtian Palace appeared in front of Ning Mingi and the others. The azure light sword recovered and slashed through the air. Thousands of sword chi rushed toward the group of people like an avalanche. Your opponent is me. Zhao Tailai roared and leaped over the heads of Ning Mingi's group. He raised his black devil saber and slashed down. Saber chi swept out and collided with the sword chi in a frenzy. Ning Mingi's group did not utter a single word. They directly bypassed the two of them and fled forward. Don't even think about it. Palace Master Fengtian roared and immediately abandoned Zhao Tailai. He turned around and chased after the group of people at lightning speed. Stay here. But at the same time, Zhao Tailai roared as his quasi-divinity energy surged out. A divine power enchantment instantly appeared. The Palace Master of Fengtian Palace snorted coldly and slashed out with his azure light sword. The enchantment shattered on the spot. Although the Palace Master of Fengtian Palace quickly shattered the enchantment, Zhao Tailai took the opportunity to step in front of him. Get out of my way! Seeing Ning Mingi's group getting further and further away, The palace master of the sky conferring palace roared like thunder. Zhao Tai grinned sinisterly. You want me to move aside? Let's see if you have the ability. The palace master of Foam Tian Palace's eyes flashed and suddenly disappeared. Zhao Tai was not surprised at all. With a wave of his hand, the quasi-divinity energy surged out and another divine power enchantment appeared, imprisoning the spatial divine object. Damn it! The palace master of Foam Tian Palace appeared again and slashed out with his azure light sword. The enchantment shattered with a bang. But at this moment, Ning Mingyi's group had already fled 1,000 miles away. What is this Qin Feiyong doing? They actually escaped. Yu Huang sensed the aura of a group of people. When he turned around to look, his eyes suddenly widened. He then hurriedly took the Grand Deacon and the others and fled for their lives. Ning Mingyi roared, "Leave them behind and I'll spare your life." Fuck. Do you think this emperor is scared? Upon hearing this, Yu Huang cursed and simply stopped. He stared at Ning Mingyi's group and grinned sinisterly. If you dare to come over again, this emperor will directly swallow them. You. Ning Mingyi suddenly braked and stopped in the void, angrily staring at Yu Huang. Yu Huang used the snake's tongue to wrap around the Grand Deacon and the others. He laughed and said, "They are right next to this emperor's mouth. As long as this emperor retracts his tongue, they will enter this emperor's mouth. Do you want to try?" Ning Yang roared, "Father, don't worry about us, let's go." Yes. We can die, but you can't die. Because if you die, the Vanga League will really be gone. Let's go. Ning Yifeng also roared. Ning Mingyi looked at the two of them, then looked at Zhao Shiming and the Grand Deacon. He then shouted to the group of people behind him, "Let's go." Immediately, the group of people bypassed Yu Huang and fled forward. "I'm scared to death, let's go." Yu Huang's body was covered in cold sweat as he quickly flew towards the palace master of Foam Tian Palace. He was afraid that Ning Mingyi did not care about the lives of these people and directly killed him. Although he had 2 artifacts now, one had to know that the Vanga League had dozens of fake gods. Moreover, Ning Mingyi had a divine phoenix saber that was even more terrifying than the sky-breaking staff. If they really fought, he would be finished in an instant. "Where do you think you are going?" But at this moment, an icy voice could be heard. Following closely, a figure appeared out of thin air, and appeared in front of Ning Mingyi. It was Willow Tree. As soon as he appeared, he grabbed the Chong Shui and stabbed towards Ning Mingyi's lower abdomen. How could Ning Mingyi expect Willow Tree to be here? He was not prepared at all. The Chong Shui directly entered his lower abdomen, blood splattering everywhere. Alliance Master. The expressions of the third deacon and the others changed. After coming back to their senses, they hurriedly charged toward Lu Mu. Willow Tree smiled coldly, took out the Chong Shui, snatched the divine phoenix saber from the Alliance Master's hand, and disappeared without a trace. "Damn it! My divine phoenix saber, my sea of qi!" The Alliance Master roared. "Alliance Master, quickly take the spiritual sea pill." One of the fake gods quickly took out a spiritual sea pill and stuffed it into Ning Mingyi's mouth. How could he be in front of us? The group of people scanned the void in surprise. Behind them, the palace master of Foam Tian Palace and Zhao Tai were also shocked. But then, a trace of joy appeared on the palace master's face as he muttered, "What a cunning kid! He really did not let me down." What is going on? With his speed and the ancient castle, how could he chase after everyone? Zhao Tai roared endlessly. "There is something I have to tell you. Don't underestimate Qin Feiyong." The palace master of Foam Tian Palace smiled coldly and rushed towards Zhao Tai with the azure light sword in his hand. "What are you waiting for? Take the Alliance Master and leave." Zhao Tai quickly rushed towards the palace master of Foam Tian Palace and roared at the third deacon and the others. Hearing Zhao Tai's roar, the third deacon immediately carried the Alliance Master and prepared to escape. But suddenly, the Willow Tree appeared again, and Li Yuan and a group of fake gods appeared together with him. These people were like hungry wolves pouncing on their prey. As soon as they appeared, they rushed towards the fake gods of the Vanga League. The third deacon and the others panicked and were sent flying on the spot. The Willow Tree directly chopped off the head of an old man. His screams resounded throughout the world. "How did you catch up so quickly?" The third deacon held Ning Mingi tightly and stared at the willow tree in disbelief.
If you can think of it, so can the young master.
He knows that with his cultivation level and the castle, he can't catch up with you.
So after those two self-destructed, he immediately gave me the castle and asked me to use it to chase after you.
Just now, when you were confronting the palace master, we had already caught up. We were just one step away. But this step was coincidentally taken by Yu Huang. He used the Grand Deacon and the others to force you to stop, so we naturally caught up with you.
The willow tree sneered.
Damn you, Qin Feiyang. What do you want? The third deacon roared hysterically. The person who planned to deal with the Vanga League was Qin Feiyang. The person who destroyed their Dimension Divine item was also Qin Feiyang. And now, it was Qin Feiyang who had cut off their only way out. Why was this little bastard so troublesome? If it weren't for him, the Vanga League would not be afraid even if the palace of Fengtian started a war.
Don't blame the young master.
If you didn't try to kill the young master in the Qingyang Mountains, he wouldn't have attacked you. You can defy the heavens, but you can't survive the sins you bring upon yourself. You asked for it.
The willow tree sneered, waved his hand and shouted, "Kill!"
Li Yuan and the others immediately performed their battle arts and activated their fighting souls. Leader, what should we do? Seeing this, all the fake gods of the Vanga League looked at Ning Mingi.
Ning Mingi closed his eyes in despair.
Was the Vanga League really at the end of its road? Qin Feiyang alone had forced the Vanga League to such an extent? He couldn't accept it. He couldn't accept it. Ning Mingi suddenly opened his eyes and roared, "Even if we die, we will die with dignity. All of you self-destruct. All of you self-destruct." Hearing this, Li Yuan and the others froze. Whoosh! Suddenly, Qin Feiyang appeared in front of the willow tree, looked down at the group of people and said calmly, "I can give you a way out." Ning Mingi and the others trembled, as if they had found a life-saving straw. They quickly looked at Qin Feiyang.
Qin Feiyang said, "Submit to me."
What? Hearing this, the first people to change their expressions were not the Vanga League, but Li Yuan and the others. If the Vanga League also submitted to Qin Feiyang, then Qin Feiyang would really be invincible in the Black Tortoise world. No matter what, they couldn't let him have his way. Li Yuan's heart sank. He turned to Qin Feiyang and said with a smile, "Brother Qin, this is not part of our plan. The plan can be changed. There are so many fake gods. It would be a waste to kill them all. Of course, I can assure you that even if the Vanga League still exists, it will not harm the interests of Fengtian Palace in the future." Qin Feiyang said with a smile. Li Yuan said anxiously, "Brother Qin, these people are unruly. Even if you use the slave seal to control them, they might not listen to you." Qin Feiyang looked at the group of people and said, "If I give you a way out, will you listen to me?" Ning Mingi and the others stammered. "Do you see that? If they would listen to you, they wouldn't be hesitating now." Li Yuan said. "Li Yuan, do you want us to die that badly?" "That's true. If everyone in the Vanga League dies, no one will be able to stop Fengtian Palace's ambition to conquer the Black Tortoise world.
However, I won't let you have your way."
Ning Mingi smiled coldly, looked at Qin Feiyang, and said, "We are willing to submit to you, and swear that if we have second thoughts, may the heavens and earth destroy us." Chapter 16-18. Swish. At this time, the palace master of Fengtian Palace and Zhao Tailai also flew over.
Zhao Tailai said anxiously, "Leader, are you kidding?
Do you really want to submit to Qin Feiyang? Do we have any other choice now?" Ning Mingi smiled bitterly. Zhao Tailai was silent. The palace master of Fengtian Palace walked to Qin Feiyang's side and looked at Ning Mingi and the others. He frowned and said, "Brother Qin, what you're doing is inappropriate." "Why is it inappropriate? I just want to give them a chance to turn over a new leaf. After all, people make mistakes, don't they? There's no need to kill them all. Don't worry, I'll control them well and won't bring trouble to Fengtian Palace." Qin Feiyang smiled. The palace master of Fengtian Palace raised his eyebrows. It seemed that this man was determined to take these people in. Qin Feiyang looked at Ning Mingi and the others and said with a smile, "Destroy their sea of qi." The group of people's faces changed.
"Destroy their sea of qi?"
If they really destroyed their Sea of Qi, what if Qin Feiyong went back on his words and wanted to kill them? One had to know. Once their Sea of Qi was destroyed, they would be a cripple no matter how strong they were. Anyone could easily get rid of them.
Destroy their cultivation?
Li Yuan was stunned, and his eyes flashed with an inexplicable light. Can you hurry up? Willow Tree urged. Ning Mingi looked at Qin Feiyong and said, Can you guarantee that after we destroy our Sea of Qi, they won't take the opportunity to attack us? Of course. Qin Feiyong nodded and then looked at Willow Tree and said, Release your divine sense, don't let the people of the Tianyang Empire take advantage of this. Understood. Willow Tree nodded. If the people of the Tianyang Empire were hiding nearby, they would definitely not let go of this opportunity when they saw the people of the Vanga League destroy their Sea of Qi. Because once the people of the Vanga League followed the young master's strength would be even stronger. The Heavenly Sun Empire would never allow such a thing to happen. Boom! He immediately released his divine sense, which rolled out in all directions. In an instant, it covered a radius of several thousand miles. Immediately, Willow Tree raised his eyebrows. What is it? Everyone looked at him suspiciously. Willow Tree raised his head and looked towards the space not too far away from him. A wisp of a fierce light flashed through his eyes as he said, There's a spatial artifact there. Really? Qin Feiyong was stunned. He looked up and said jokingly, Mu Tianyang, are you really going to hide in the dark and reap the benefits? Before he could finish, Willow Tree looked at Qin Feiyong and said, They left. Ignore them. Qin Feiyong waved his hand and looked at Ning Mingi's group. He said impatiently, I don't have much patience. Hurry up. The third deacon said to himself, Alliance Master, Vice Alliance Master, you have to think twice. There's nothing to think about. It's decided. Although following him will make our Vanga League a laughingstock in the Black Tortoise world, at least we can save everyone's lives. Qin Feiyong can't stay in the Black Tortoise world forever. After he leaves, we'll still be us. The Vanga League will still be the Vanga League. There won't be any changes. Zhao Tailai sighed. The group of fake gods sighed when they heard that. Their expressions were incomparably desolate. Ning Mingi took a deep breath and looked at Qin Feiyong. He said, My Sea of Qi has been destroyed by Willow Tree. Control me first. Qin Feiyong formed a seal with both hands. A seal of slavery appeared and sank into Ning Mingi's head. After Ning Mingi was controlled, Zhao Tailai and the other deacons looked at each other and destroyed their own Sea of Qi. But at this moment, Li Yuan, who was standing beside Qin Feiyong, had a murderous look in his eyes. He stretched out his arm and grabbed Qin Feiyong's neck like an eagle's claw. Willow Tree and Yo Huang's expressions changed. Ning Mingi and Zhao Tailai's expressions changed as well. Even the people of Fengtian Palace and their palace master were caught off guard. Willow Tree shouted, Li Yuan, what are you doing? What am I doing? Li Yuan smiled coldly and said, Don't you think that this is an opportunity? What do you mean? Willow Tree's expression darkened. Originally, the palace master and I had discussed that after destroying the Vanga League and the Tianyang Empire, we would send you out of the Black Tortoise world. This way, Fengtian Palace would be able to unify the Black Tortoise world. But I didn't expect you to change your mind and want to subdue the Vanga League. This made me very angry. But because of Chang Shui and the Vanga League's cultivation, I didn't dare to fall out with you. So I was waiting for an opportunity. And this opportunity is now. The Vanga League Sea of Popularity has been destroyed. They are fish on the chopping board, waiting to be slaughtered by Fengtian Palace. The most important thing is that Qin Feiyong is also in my hands. Right now, I only need to use a bit of strength to kill him. So now, Fengtian Palace has the final say. Palace Master, this is a good opportunity. As long as we get rid of the Vanga League, kill Qin Feiyong, and get Chang Shui in the castle, no one will be able to threaten Fengtian Palace. Li Yuan laughed loudly. Willow Tree, Yu Huang, and the Vanga League's faces darkened. The people from the Fengtian Palace looked at Li Yuan, then at Qin Feiyong and the others. Their hearts were moved. When the palace master of Fengtian Palace heard Li Yuan's words, he glanced at Qin Feiyong and the others. His eyes flickered. Qin Feiyong frowned and said, I have already promised that the Vanga League will not threaten Fengtian Palace.
promise.
You can't be that naive. Do you think we will believe you with just a few words? Just as you said, the plan can be changed. Chong Shui is such a powerful artifact. If we have the chance to get it, why don't we do it? Li Yuan sneered. Fine. I don't care. You can do whatever you want with the Vanga League. Qin Feiyang said.
Ning Mingyi and the others panicked. No, no, no. You don't have the final say now.
It's me. We will kill the Vanga League. But we will not let you go either. Ask Willow Tree to give me the Chong Shui. I will consider letting you suffer less before you die. Li Yuan laughed cruelly. Qin Feiyang's eyes flickered. He said, Palace Master of Fengtian Palace, say something. Are we going to continue being friends? Or are we going to be enemies? The Palace Master of Fengtian Palace remained silent. He was struggling in his heart. Li Yuan said anxiously, My lord, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Palace Master, we agree with Li Yuan's decision. The second elder said. The others nodded. They looked at the Chong Shui with greed in their eyes. The Palace Master of Fengtian Palace glanced at Qin Feiyang, Li Yuan, and the others. He looked hesitant as if he could not make a decision. Li Yuan shouted, Elders, let's kill the Vanga League first. The second elder and the others immediately walked toward the Vanga League. Ning Mingyi's heart was burning with anxiety as he exclaimed, Qin Feiyang, it was because we believed in you that we crippled our cultivations. You can't just ignore us now. Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed coldly. He said, Palace Master, are you sure you don't want to stop Li Yuan? The Palace Master of Fengtian Palace gritted his teeth and looked at Li Yuan. Let go of Brother Qin. What? Li Yuan was stunned. The other elders also stopped and turned to look at the Palace Master of Fengtian Palace in disbelief. The Palace Master did not agree to such a good opportunity? The Palace Master of Fengtian Palace said angrily, I order you to let go of him. Li Yuan said angrily, Qin Feiyang's life is in my hands. What are you afraid of? Peace is the most important thing. The Palace Master of Fengtian Palace said. Peace is the most important thing? Li Yuan laughed and shook his head. My lord, don't find excuses for your weakness. You're just afraid that Qin Feiyang has other tricks up his sleeves. In other words, you're afraid of death. Impudent. The Palace Master of Fengtian Palace said angrily. Impudent? Today, I'll show you how impudent I am. Elders, do it now. Li Yuan shouted. The Palace Master of Fengtian Palace swung his azure light sword. He glanced at the elders and said, Let's see who dares. The elders' pupils shrank. They stood in the air, not daring to move. Li Yuan shouted, Everyone, he's no longer fit to be the Palace Master of Fengtian Palace. Please think of the bigger picture. How dare you? The Palace Master of Fengtian Palace was so angry that his body trembled. Qin Feiyang said, I remember Willow Tree said that you're the Palace Master's servant. As a servant, how dare you speak to your master like that? How unruly! Ha. Unruly? In this world, the fist is the king. Li Yuan laughed wildly. He stared at Willow Tree and shouted, Give me the Chong Shui. Now. Willow Tree looked at Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang said, Give it to him. Willow Tree's face suddenly showed a trace of anxiety. Do you remember what I said to you before? It's mine. It'll always be mine. Qin Feiyang said. Willow Tree's eyes lit up. Without hesitation, he threw the Chong Shui to Li Yuan. Li Yuan grabbed the Chong Shui. His face was full of excitement. He shouted, Erase the blood contract inside. You'll regret it. Willow Tree smiled coldly. With a thought, the blood contract inside the Chong Shui disappeared on the spot. Li Yuan immediately dripped his blood to recognize it as his master. After successfully recognizing it as his master, he immediately threw his head back and laughed wildly. Who else can be my opponent now? Vanga League? Fengtian Palace? Tianyang Empire? Nether Hall? Haha. I'm the overlord of the Black Tortoise world. All of you submit to me. Li Yuan suddenly turned his head and stared at the Palace Master of Fengtian Palace. He laughed sinisterly. And you, I've tolerated you for a long time.
If you weren't the palace master of Fengtian Palace and I had to rely on you to survive in the Black Tortoise world, I would have killed you long ago.
The palace master of Fengtian Palace was instantly furious.
He said coldly. So this is your true face.
That's right.
I've always tolerated you before.
Why do I have to be your servant? Didn't you say that everyone is equal? Why don't I have the word equal? Do I have to act according to your whims all the time? Why? I don't accept it. That's why I swore that one day, I would become an existence that the world would respect and fear.
Now I've done it.
With Xueqi here, who dares to compete with me? As for you, don't worry, I won't kill you.
I'll make you my servant forever.
You'll serve me tea and listen to my orders. Li Yuan laughed. Bastard.
Don't forget, I'm the one who made you who you are today.
If it weren't for me, would you have your current cultivation? Would you have become an elder of Fengtian Palace?
You're simply a white-eyed wolf.
The palace master of Fengtian Palace was furious. That's right.
It's because I remember this that I don't plan to kill you.
Aren't I just repaying your kindness? Chapter 16-19. The palace master of the palace of Fengtian clenched his fists and his body trembled violently. He was pissed off. Li Yuan had always been the person he trusted the most in the palace of Fengtian. Therefore, he had spent a lot of effort and resources to cultivate Li Yuan. Even the most important part of the 9-palace sword array, the sword heart, was controlled by Li Yuan. However, he didn't expect that he had cultivated a white-eyed wolf who couldn't be fed. He must have been blind. It wasn't until now that he saw the true face of this person. Li Yuan sneered at the palace master of the palace of Fengtian, then looked at the elders and the other fake gods of the palace of Fengtian and said, "Now, I'll give you a chance to serve me." The elders and the group of fake gods looked at Li Yuan with fear in their eyes. However, the source of their fear was not Li Yuan, but Xueqi in his hands.
Have I said enough?
Suddenly, Qin Feiyang said. Li Yuan shouted, "Shut up. I'll teach you a lesson later." Teach me a lesson? Don't you think it's too early to be proud? Do you really think you can control Xueqi? Ridiculous. What's mine will always be mine. Even if it's in your hands, you can't catch it. Qin Feiyang sneered and said sincerely, "Xueqi, come back." Li Yuan was slightly stunned. Then he couldn't help but laugh and said, "Are you stupid? I've already recognized Xueqi as my master. Do you think it will return to you just because you said so?" However, before he finished speaking, there was a loud clang and Xueqi emitted a bright divine light. What's going on? Li Yuan was shocked. The others also looked at Xueqi in surprise. The next moment, Li Yuan's body trembled violently and he spat out a mouthful of blood. How is this possible? The blood contract inside. It was actually... His face was pale and filled with disbelief. Blood contract? What's wrong with the blood contract? Everyone was shocked when they heard this. At the same time, Xueqi emitted a terrifying aura, shaking off Li Yuan's 5 fingers, and automatically flew out of his hand. Damn it! Li Yuan was infuriated, killing intent surging in his eyes. He grabbed Qin Feiyang's neck with his other hand and prepared to crush Qin Feiyang's throat. However, Xueqi transformed into a streak of light and swept towards Li Yuan's shoulder like lightning. Ah! Li Yuan let out a miserable howl. His entire arm was chopped off in an instant. The wound on his shoulder immediately spurted out blood. How is this possible? Li Yuan widened his eyes in anger. Qin Feiyang chuckled. He raised his arm and opened his palm. Xueqi immediately fell into his palm. Seeing this scene, everyone present was dumbfounded. It was automatically protecting its master. Many divine artifacts were capable of automatically protecting their owners. But the key point was that Li Yuan had already dripped his blood on it. In other words, the owner of Xueqi had become Li Yuan. If it wanted to protect its master, it should be protecting Li Yuan. But why was it protecting Qin Feiyang? What was going on? Willow Tree was also in disbelief. He had heard from Qin Feiyang that Xueqi would never leave him. Even if someone dripped his blood on it, it would be useless. Originally, he thought that this was nonsense. However, he didn't expect it to be true. Qin Feiyang grabbed Chang Xue, turned to look at Li Yuan, and said, "Is the scene in front of you far beyond your imagination? Why is this happening? Chang Xue actually took the initiative to erase my blood contract. How is this possible?" Li Yuan roared. "What? Took the initiative to erase his blood contract?" The palace master of Fengtian Palace and the others, as well as Ning Mingi, were all dumbfounded. Took the initiative to erase Li Yuan's blood contract? This was more than beyond imagination. It was completely impossible. But how could Chang Xue do it? I don't know either. But I can feel that there is some kind of bond between Chang Xue and me. No one or anything can cut it off. Qin Feiyang said with a smile. Isn't this too incredible? Everyone murmured. How is it? Do you feel desperate now? You said everything before. I think not only me, but also the palace master won't let you go. Qin Feiyang said with a smile. Li Yuan's body trembled. He quickly turned around and knelt in front of the palace master of Fengtian Palace, begging, "Lord, I was confused just now. I didn't mean to say those words. Please forgive me." Forgive? The palace master of Fengtian Palace suddenly had a murderous look in his eyes. In fact, Li Yuan's betrayal was just a small matter in his eyes. The most important thing was that Li Yuan almost destroyed the entire Fengtian Palace. Previously, if he had listened to Li Yuan's instigation and fell out with Qin Feiyang, then the current Fengtian Palace would definitely be facing Qin Feiyang's anger. Fortunately, he had concerns and did not do so. Fortunately, he stopped the elders. Otherwise, the consequences would be unimaginable. Lord, I really know my mistake. Please give me another chance. I promise that I will never make such a mistake again. Li Yuan's heart was burning with anxiety as he solemnly vowed. The palace master of Fengtian Palace glanced at Qin Feiyang, then lowered his head to look at Li Yuan and said, "Get up. After all, we have been together for so many years. How can I bear to kill you?" "Thank you, Lord." Li Yuan hurriedly thanked him. "What do you mean? You're not going to kill him?" Willow Tree raised his eyebrows. "Don't worry," Qin Feiyang secretly said, his eyes flickering. After Li Yuan got up, the palace master of Fengtian Palace asked, "Where is the five-colored exquisite sword?" Li Yuan waved his hand and the five-colored exquisite sword shot out from his body. The palace master of Fengtian Palace grabbed it in his hands and killing intent surged in his eyes. The green light sword tore through the air and chopped off Li Yuan's head instantly. Fresh blood splattered, dyeing the void and desert red. Ugh! Willow Tree was stunned and mumbled, "So, you lied about not killing him because of the five-colored exquisite sword." The main reason was to let Li Yuan let down his guard. After all, Li Yuan is not weak. Coupled with the five-colored exquisite sword, if he resisted with all his might, he might cause some trouble. Qin Feiyang smiled. Willow Tree nodded and looked at the palace master of Fengtian Palace, teasing, "Palace master, we helped you uncover an ambitious person. Shouldn't you be thanking us? After so many years, I still haven't seen his true colors. It's truly shameful. However, I do have to thank you guys. Otherwise, I might really be plotted against by him in the future." The palace master of Fengtian Palace sighed. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly and formed a seal with his hands. Seals of slavery appeared one after another and disappeared into the heads of Zhao Tai Lai and the others. After a while, the fake gods of the Vanga League were all controlled. The palace master of Fengtian Palace cupped his hands and smiled. "Congratulations, Brother Qin. You have gained another powerful subordinate." "Palace master, you don't mean it," Qin Feiyang said. "I only hope that Brother Qin will keep his word." The palace master of Fengtian Palace smiled bitterly. Indeed. He was also very opposed to Qin Feiyang subduing the Vanga League. But was there any use in objecting? It was better not to anger this person. "Don't worry. From this moment on, the Vanga League is disbanded. There is only one Palace Fengtian in the Black Tortoise world," Qin Feiyang said. The palace master of Fengtian Palace heard this and finally felt relieved. However, Ning Mingi and the others suddenly changed their expressions. Ning Mingi hurriedly said, "Qin Feiyang," Willow Tree shouted. "Do you think you can call the young master's name directly?" Ning Mingi shrunk his neck and hurriedly changed his words. "Young master, although we have submitted to you,
You don't have to disband the Vanga League. Willow Tree said angrily. Since you have followed the young master, of course you are his people.
What's the point of keeping the Vanga League?
Ningmingi said unwillingly. You're right, but... No buts. Your duty now is to be loyal to the young master unconditionally and listen to his orders. The young master's words are the imperial edict.
Unless you want to die. Willow Tree shouted.
The group suddenly lowered their heads and looked very disappointed. Qin Feiyang asked, Do you regret following me?
The group was silent, but their expressions said it all.
Qin Feiyang smiled confidently and said, You have to look further.
I have my reasons for disbanding the Vanga League. You will understand in the future and be grateful to me. The group did not think much of it.
Seeing that the situation was settled, Yu Huang flew to Qin Feiyang with the senior executive and the others and asked, Young Master Qin, how should we deal with these people? Willow Tree waved his hand and said, Just swallow them.
No.
Ningmingi and Zhao Tailai hurriedly cried out. Young Master, Yonger, Fenger and Menger are all talented young people. Their futures are limitless. The senior executive and the second executive are also very strong.
Keep them alive. They will definitely be of help to you in the future.
Yes.
I only have one daughter. Please spare her life, okay?
The two looked at Qin Feiyang and begged pitifully. Father, we are not afraid of death.
We won't beg him.
Ning Yifeng and Zhao Tailai roared.
Yes.
What's there to be afraid of death?
18 years later, you will be a hero again. Zhao Shiming snorted coldly.
Hearing the three's words, Ningmingi and the others lowered their heads in shame. Qin Feiyang turned his head and looked at the three in surprise.
Suddenly, his eyes turned and fell on Zhao Shiming.
He smiled and said, Willow Tree, go and take off her skirt.
I want to see if she is a hero. How?
Willow Tree was stunned.
Of course. See if she has a handle.
Don't all heroes have handles?
Qin Feiyang said. Willow Tree's face twitched.
How could such a beautiful woman have a handle?
You rogue, shameless. Zhao Shiming's face turned pale and she immediately roared.
Zhao Tailai also hurriedly said, Young master, don't, my daughter is not married yet. If you strip her naked in front of everyone, how can she get married before? Qin Feiyang turned a deaf ear, looked at Zhao Shiming, and laughed. Are you afraid?
Then beg me. Kill me.
Zhao Shiming's face was red with anger as she said angrily.
Still stubborn?
Yu Huang put her down.
Willow Tree, go.
Qin Feiyang said indifferently.
All right.
Yu Huang chuckled and released the snake's tongue. The few of them immediately fell into the void in a sorry state. Willow Tree immediately released his divine might, imprisoning the few of them, and then walked towards Zhao Shiming step by step. No. Zhao Shiming shook her head, her face ashen. Willow Tree said, Then beg young master.
Zhao Shiming still shook her head.
Having a backbone is not necessarily a good thing sometimes. Willow Tree smiled mockingly, took a step forward, and grabbed Zhao Shiming's clothes. Zhao Shiming's beautiful face turned pale, looked at Qin Feiyang and screamed, No, I beg you. Ha ha. Qin Feiyang laughed loudly, turned to Ningmingi and the others and said, Take the spirit sea pill immediately.
Willow Tree also let go of Zhao Shiming.
Zhao Tailai finally breathed a sigh of relief. Fengtian Palace Master glanced at Qin Feiyang, and his eyes flashed. He looked at the second elder and the others and shouted, Set off immediately, chase after the people of the Heavenly Sun Empire.
Yes.
A group of fake gods immediately released their divine sense and chased in the direction of the Heavenly Sun Empire.
Qin Feiyang looked at Fengtian Palace Master in surprise.
Fengtian Palace Master said, Isn't the next step to eradicate the Heavenly Sun Empire? I didn't expect you to know me so well. It seems that I need to be friends with you.
Qin Feiyang smiled. It's my pleasure.
Chapter 1620. Tianyang Empire? Ningmingi and the others were startled.
That's right. Where are they?
Didn't we agree to form an alliance? Why isn't there a single shadow of them? Zhao Tailai said angrily. Don't you understand? It's all thanks to them that we were able to catch up to you.
Qin Feiyang said.
What do you mean? Zhao Tailai frowned. Qin Feiyang said, "Why did Mu Tianyang and Yen Shenho fight?" The second deacon said, "It's because Mu Qing offended me, and Yen Shenho taught him a lesson." Later on, Mu Tianyang couldn't stand it and helped Mu Qing. Speaking of which, the second deacon was startled. He looked at Qin Feiyang in shock and said, "You mean they did it on purpose?" "That's right." Qin Feiyang nodded. "Damn bastards, I won't forgive them." The second deacon was furious. "He wants us to fight until both sides are injured, then come out and reap the benefits. However, they still underestimate me, Qin Feiyang. How could I give them this chance?" Qin Feiyang sneered. Ning Mingi said angrily, "Betrayal, we must find them and tear them into pieces." Qin Feiyang glanced at him, then used the slave seal to control Ning Feng and the others, then looked at Willow Tree and said, "Give me the castle." Willow Tree waved his hand, and the castle flew out from between his eyebrows. Qin Feiyang looked at Ning Mingi and the others, and said, "You guys go to the castle to repair your qi first, Willow Tree. You also go in and rest for a while." Willow Tree nodded. After Qin Feiyang sent the group to the ancient castle, the palace master of Fengtian Palace brought Qin Feiyang and Yu Huang to chase after the second elders group. After flying for some distance, Palace Master Fengtian suddenly sent a voice transmission. "Brother Qin, can you honestly answer me a question?" "What is it?" Qin Feiyang was suspicious. Palace Master Fengtian Palace said, "You kept Ning Mingi and the others, is it really just because of their strength? What do you think? Using them to deal with Fengtian Palace? And then unify the Black Tortoise world?" Qin Feiyang asked. The Palace Master of Fengtian Palace was silent for a while before he smiled and said, "Let's not beat around the bush. It's not impossible, right? You worry too much. I have no interest in unifying the Black Tortoise world. Because I don't need power. If I could choose, I would rather use my cultivation in exchange for an ordinary life." Qin Feiyang shook his head. Palace Master Fengtian Palace was stunned. "Do you know? I envy those ordinary people who live in the countryside. Although they have to work hard to make a living, no one will restrain them. They don't have to scheme against each other all day, living in slaughter and freedom." Qin Feiyang said. The more Palace Master Fengtian Palace heard, the more surprised he was. This kid's age wasn't too old. Why did he look like he had experienced the vicissitudes of life? Looking at this kid, he was also a person with a story. And this story wasn't something ordinary people could bear. So don't worry, I won't leave anything behind in the Black Tortoise world, and I won't stay here forever. After destroying the Heavenly Sun Empire, I will leave immediately," Qin Feiyang said. Palace Master Fengtian Palace heaved a sigh of relief. Whoosh! Half an hour later, a black-robed old man flew through the air like lightning. He was one of the 10 great elders of Fengtian Palace. "How is it? Did you find them?" Palace Master Fengtian Palace asked. "No. We have spread out and searched tens of thousands of miles ahead, but we didn't find the Heavenly Sun Empire's spatial divine item," the black-robed old man said. "Brat Qin, it won't be easy to find them now. They know that you have subdued the Vanga League. They will definitely hide in the spatial divine item and go deep into the desert. The most important thing is Mu Qing's omniscient eye. The omniscient eye can spy on everyone's location. They can definitely avoid us in advance," Yu Huang said. Palace Master Fengtian Palace looked at Qin Feiyang and said, "As Yu Huang said, if they want to hide, it will be a problem." Qin Feiyang stopped and stood in the air above the desert. He lowered his head and pondered. Yu Huang, Palace Master Fengtian Palace, and the black-robed old man also stopped and waited for Qin Feiyang. A moment later, Qin Feiyang suddenly took out the image crystal, looked up at Palace Master Fengtian Palace, and asked, "Can I send messages here?" Palace Master Fengtian Palace nodded and said, "You can send messages in the forbidden areas, but you can't open the portal." Qin Feiyang activated the image crystal. Soon, an illusory figure appeared. If it wasn't Mu Qing, who else could it be? When Mu Qing saw that it was Qin Feiyang, his expression was rather astonished. Soon after he smiled playfully and said, "Are you at a loss right now?" "Yes." Qin Feiyang nodded. "So straightforward? I thought you were going to deny it." Mu Qing was stunned. "Is it necessary?" Qin Feiyong said with a faint smile. It's really not necessary. Then why are you sending me a message now? Don't tell me you want us to take the initiative to come to you and let you kill us? Mu Qing joked. That's what I meant. Qin Feiyong said with a smile. What? Mu Qing was taken aback. Palace Master Feng Tian Palace, Yu Huang, and the black-clothed old man were also stunned. What was this guy thinking? How could the people of the Tianyang Empire take the initiative to die? They weren't idiots. Haha. Are you joking? Or is there something wrong with your brain? Mu Qing came back to his senses and immediately sneered. Qin Feiyong said, Don't be in a hurry to laugh. Then tell me. Mu Qing crossed his arms and looked at Qin Feiyong. Qin Feiyong said, I believe you and Mu Tianyang already know that we can only stay here for half a year at most. Yes. I've heard about this before. Is there a problem? Mu Qing said. Qin Feiyong asked, Then are you leaving? Nonsense, of course we're leaving. Mu Qing frowned. Qin Feiyong said with a smile, Since you're leaving, then you have to take the initiative to come to me. What do you mean? What does our leaving have to do with us coming to find you? Mu Qing looked puzzled. Qin Feiyong said, The Black Tortoise Realm only has one exit. If I let people block the exit, do you think you can still leave? So that's how it is. Palace Master Feng Tian Palace suddenly understood. He looked at Qin Feiyong and said with a smile, My Feng Tian Palace is willing to help with this matter. Mu Qing's expression stiffened. He glared at Qin Feiyong and shouted, You're despicable. You set up a trap to trap the Vanga League. Isn't that despicable? So don't talk about me, everyone is the same. I'll go to the River of Corrosion in Peach Blossom City now. I'll wait for you at the bridge. I hope you won't make me wait too long. Also, not only you and Mu Tianyang, but also everyone from the Heavenly Sun Empire. After Qin Feiyong finished speaking, he turned off the image crystal. Yu Huang grinned and said, Boy Qin, that's a good idea. As long as we block the Devil's Land, they can only come to beg you. Qin Feiyong smiled faintly and looked at Palace Master Feng Tian Palace. Call all your people back. We'll ambush them at the entrance of the Undead Mountain Range. Okay. Palace Master Feng Tian Palace nodded. Suddenly he was stunned and hurriedly said, Wait, didn't you say to go to the River of Corrosion? Why did it become an ambush at the entrance of the Undead Mountain Range? I only said that the people of the Heavenly Sun Empire heard it. The Heavenly Sun Empire definitely won't go to their deaths because of Mu Qing and Mu Tianyang. They might even fall out. But they can't stay in the desert forever. When they know that I'm going to the River of Corrosion, they will definitely choose to leave the desert. And there won't be any protection. We can seize this opportunity to catch them all in one fell swoop. Qin Feiyong said. You mean to say that going to the River of Corrosion is just a pretense to lure them out of the desert? Palace Master Feng Tian Palace asked. That's right. Qin Feiyong nodded. Palace Master Feng Tian Palace and the black-robed old man looked at each other and couldn't help but feel a chill in their hearts. Who was the one who said that this kid was brainless? Stop right there and promise not to beat him to death. Qin Feiyong continued. Of course, given Mu Qing and Mu Tianyang's cautious personalities, they will definitely send me another message before leaving the desert to confirm whether or not we are at the River of Corrosion. Palace Master Feng Tian Palace asked, Then what are your arrangements? Very good. Give the spatial divine item to your wife or someone else. Have them lie in ambush at the entrance to the departed Soul Mountain Range while you come with me to the River of Corrosion. When Mu Tianyang sees that we are at the River of Corrosion, he will not think that there is an ambush at the entrance to the departed Soul Mountain Range, because he will think that the others are in our spatial divine item. Qin Feiyong said. Palace Master Feng Tian Palace was taken aback. What if he tells us to call the others out? Do we have to call them out just because he says so? Give him that much face? Qin Feiyong sneered. Palace Master Feng Tian Palace nodded and glanced at the black-robed old man. When Li Yuan captured him, it was fortunate that I didn't turn hostile with him. That's right. Although this kid's cultivation is still shallow, his mind is truly frightening. It can be described as watertight. If we can't get rid of such a person, we can only become friends. It's truly hard to imagine what he went through in the past. How did he train such a frightening mind and mind? The black-robed old man thought. This kind of mind was not something that a young person should have. No matter what he went through in the past, one thing is for sure. The Heavenly Sun Empire will be destroyed by him. The palace master of the Imperial Conferring Palace smiled. This is a good thing for us. The Vanga League has already disbanded and the main tower has been destroyed. When he destroys the Heavenly Sun Empire, only the Nether Hall will be left. A mere Nether Hall will not dare to act rashly in front of us. The black-robed old man smiled. That's right. Although the Grand Elder died in his hands and the 9-palace sword array was taken by him, it was all worth it. Palace Master Feng Tian Palace thought. The two of them smiled at each other and took out an image crystal to send a message to the rest of the Palace Master Feng Tian Palace to evacuate. In less than 100 breaths, everyone rushed over to meet up. Everyone was confused when they heard that they were going to evacuate. However, when Palace Master Feng Tian Palace told them about Qin Feiyang's plan, they were sincerely impressed by Qin Feiyang's mind. They were happy to do so. Chapter 1621. Deep in the desert. The wind howled, and sand filled the sky. Inside the spatial divine item, in a hall, Mu Tianyang and Yen Shenho sat opposite each other. Mu Qing stood respectfully beside Mu Tianyang. The three of them were silent, and the atmosphere was very heavy. A moment later, Yen Shenho said, "No matter what, we will not accompany you to die." Mu Tianyang said angrily, "If you don't go, how can Mu Qing and I leave the Black Tortoise world?" "That's your business," Yen Shenho said. "Bastard! Do you want us to be like you and be trapped here for the rest of our lives?" Mu Tianyang said angrily. "Did someone force you to enter the Black Tortoise world? You ran in yourself. Who's to blame? The Heavenly Sun Empire outside has already been destroyed by your hands. What else do you want? Do you know how much effort we spent in the Black Tortoise world to create the Heavenly Sun Empire today? How much effort did we spend to cultivate so many false gods? Do you think these are all blown by the wind? Do you have to destroy our Heavenly Sun Empire before you're satisfied?" Yen Shenho said angrily. "Humph. So what if there are many false gods? They're just a bunch of trash, including you. When this emperor recovers to his peak state, with just this emperor's strength alone, I will be able to create an unprecedented and prosperous country." Mu Tianyang sneered. His tone was full of disdain. Fine. You're amazing. We can't afford to offend you. Go, get out of the Black Tortoise world and create your own prosperous country. Yen Shenho was so angry that he laughed, almost going crazy. Mu Tianyang said, "You have to go because this is Qin Feiyang's request." "Why?" Yen Shenho roared. "Because this emperor is the first war god in the history of the Heavenly Sun Empire." Mu Tianyang said proudly. "Is a war god that great? Aren't you the same now, being chased by Qin Feiyang, a war emperor? Aren't you embarrassed? Aren't you afraid of being laughed at? War god? The way I see it, you're even worse than a piece of trash." Yen Shenho raged. Boom! A surge of divine power rushed out from Mu Tianyang's body. Not to be outdone, Yen Shenho unleashed his false god force. Mu Qing raised his eyebrows, looked at Yen Shenho, and said in a deep voice, "It's best to be polite to the master. You have the right to speak here." "Shut up." Yen Shenho was furious to the extreme. He slapped Mu Qing's face. A blood-red palm print immediately appeared. Mu Tianyang flew into a rage. He raised his big hand and slapped Yen Shenho. "You really don't know what's good for you." Yen Shenho's eyes turned cold as his false god force surged towards Mu Tianyang like a tidal wave. "Stop." At this moment, a firm, imperious voice suddenly appeared. Following closely, a middle-aged man wearing a dragon crown and a dragon robe appeared out of thin air beside the three of them. "Greetings, Emperor." Yen Shenho's body trembled and immediately bowed to the middle-aged man. Obviously, this was the Emperor of the Black Tortoise World's Heavenly Sun Empire. However, facing this Emperor, Mu Tianyang and Mu Qing did not have the slightest respect. The middle-aged man glanced at Mu Qing, then looked at Mu Tianyang and said expressionlessly, "We can't help you with this matter. You can think of a way yourself." Mu Tianyang suddenly stood up, clenched his fists, and stared at the middle-aged man. Also, you have to understand that this is the Black Tortoise world, not the outside world. Here, this emperor has the final say. If you want to take power from this emperor, then show me your ability. The middle-aged man said. Mu Tianyong's face sank as he said word by word, "You will regret your decision today." Is that so? This emperor will wait and see. As for now, you should think about how to escape Qin Feiyong's calamity. After the middle-aged man finished speaking, he waved his hand, and Mu Tianyong and Mu Qing immediately appeared in the sky above the desert outside. Bastard! Mu Tianyong was furious. Mu Qing's face was also full of anger, and said, "Originally, I thought that these people should be able to help us, but I didn't expect that they would not put us in their eyes at all. If I was still at my peak, would they dare to treat me like this? They can't even wait to curry favor with me. In the end, it's still strength. With enough strength, no matter where you are, you will be respected. Without strength, even if you are a clansman, you will not be reliable." Mu Tianyong coldly snorted. Mu Qing nodded and comforted. "There is always a way, we will definitely think of a way. Master, don't be too angry. I will remember the humiliation they gave me today. Immediately check the whereabouts of Qin Feiyong and see if he really went to the river of bone erosion." Mu Tianyong said. Mu Qing immediately opened her all-seeing eye. After a while, Mu Qing nodded and said, "He is indeed evacuating. Then let's hurry up and try to get in front of him and enter the Devil's Land." Mu Tianyong said in a deep voice, and then took Mu Qing and flew away like lightning. Inside the Space Divine item. Looking at the two disappearing figures, Yan Shenho frowned and looked at the middle-aged man, and said, "Emperor, what should we do? Since Qin Feiyong and the others have already evacuated, then let's go and see if there is a chance to save Mu Xingkong." The middle-aged man said, killing intent flashing in his eyes, and then he controlled the Space Divine item and followed behind Mu Tianyong and flew outside. Time flew. Finally, Qin Feiyong and a group of people left the desert and appeared in the sky above the undead mountain range. "You damn monsters, let go of me." Far away, they had already heard Zhuge Mingyang's roar. Still struggling. Willow Tree was surprised. A group of people flew over. Thousands of cedars were still gathered together, forming an iron bucket-like prison, tightly trapping Zhuge Mingyang. Qin Feiyong joked, "We all went to fight the Vanga League, and you are still here?" Qin Feiyong? Zhuge Mingyang was stunned, and quickly looked up at Qin Feiyong and shouted, "Brother Qin, we are friends, help me." "Friend? I can't afford to be friends with you. I won't disturb you, you can continue," Qin Feiyong said. "Where are you going?" Zhuge Mingyang roared. "The river of bone erosion." After Qin Feiyong finished speaking, he left with a group of people without looking back. "Qin Feiyong, you bastard, I will not let you go." Zhuge Mingyang roared in anger, shaking the mountains and rivers. After a while, a group of people flew out of the undead mountain range and stood above the entrance. Qin Feiyong looked at the palace master of Fengtian Palace and said, "Arrange it quickly." The palace master of Fengtian Palace nodded, waved his hand, and a woman appeared. It was his wife, the vice palace master of Fengtian Palace. "Greetings, Brother Qin." The woman bowed. After this period of cultivation, her Sea of Qi had also been repaired. "Senior, you are too polite." Qin Feiyong smiled. The palace master of Fengtian Palace waved his hand again, and a palm-sized ancient city flew out from between his eyebrows and flew in front of the woman. He said, "Madam, I will leave this Space Divine item to you. When the people of the Tianyong Empire come, you must be careful." "I know." The woman nodded, grabbed the ancient city, and led the second elders group into the ancient city. Qin Feiyong also immediately opened the teleportation gate to the river of bone erosion. The next moment, Qin Feiyong, the palace master of Fengtian Palace, and Yu Huang descended on the riverbank of the river of bone erosion. Qin Feiyong stood at the bridge, looking at Peach Blossom City. The originally bustling Peach Blossom City had not only turned into nothingness, but there was also not a single shadow. It was dead silent. Peach Blossom City, which has existed for so many years, turned into ruins just like that. What a pity. The palace master of Fengtian Palace sighed deeply,
turned to Qin Feiyong and asked, "Brother Qin, do you know who did this?" Qin Feiyong said, "Who else could it be besides Zhuge Mingyang?" "It's him?" The palace master of Fengtian Palace was shocked. Qin Feiyong withdrew his gaze, turned to the river of bone erosion, and said, "Can this river of bone erosion really kill a false god?" "Of course." The palace master of Fengtian Palace nodded, very certain. Qin Feiyong frowned. Then why didn't Zhuge Mingyang die after falling in? What kind of demonic art is he cultivating now? Bewilderment could be seen in Yo Huang's eyes as she stared at the pitch-black bone erosion river. "Young master, quickly come to the castle." Suddenly, Willow Tree's voice sounded in Qin Feiyong's mind. Qin Feiyong was startled. He looked at Yu Huang and the palace master of Fengtian Palace, and said, "You guys wait here first, I will go to the castle." Shua! Qin Feiyong had already disappeared without waiting for the man and the beast to react. Inside the castle. The moment Qin Feiyong entered, he saw Ling Yunfei and Willow Tree, as well as the 6 great elders standing together. Willow Tree was holding onto a scarlet broadsword tightly, and a group of people were glaring angrily at Ning Mingi and the others. This blade was the Phoenix Divine Blade that he had obtained from Ning Mingi. At that time, because he wanted to subdue Ning Mingi and the others, he placed the Divine Phoenix Blade in the castle. "What is it?" Qin Feiyong looked at Willow Tree and Ling Yunfei and asked. Willow Tree said angrily, "As soon as this person's Sea of Qi recovered, he wanted to take back the Phoenix Divine Blade. I did not agree, and he was even prepared to attack me." Qin Feiyong raised his eyebrows. Ning Mingi anxiously looked at Qin Feiyong and pleaded, "Young master, this Phoenix Divine Blade was passed down from the previous alliance masters. I cannot lose it. Young master, on account of us having already submitted to you, can you return it to me?" What a joke. Right now, your little lives belong to the young master, not to mention the divine artifact. Willow Tree snorted. Ning Mingi angrily glared at Willow Tree, then looked at Qin Feiyong and begged, "Young master, I beg you." Qin Feiyong said, "It's impossible for me to give you this divine artifact now." What? As soon as Ning Mingi heard this, he immediately collapsed powerlessly. Of course. If you perform well in the future, it's a different story. Qin Feiyong said again. Ning Mingi immediately became spirited, and he looked at Qin Feiyong and said solemnly, "Young master, don't worry, I will perform well." Qin Feiyong smiled faintly and said, "Tell me about your current foundation. How many false gods do you have left? How many divine artifacts do you have?" "Including my son Feng Yang, there are a total of 52 false gods. Apart from the Phoenix Divine Blade, there are 10 divine artifacts in the hands of the 9 great deacons and Zhao Tai Lai." Ning Mingi said, "That many?" Qin Feiyong was surprised. 52 false gods, plus the 6 great elders, Yu Huang, and Willow Tree. Didn't this mean that he now had 60 false gods by his side? This was really a great harvest. Qin Feiyong smiled. "Hand over all the divine artifacts." This. Chapter 1622. Willow Tree smiled proudly and shouted, "Didn't you hear? Hurry up, or we'll use force." Ning Mingi sighed helplessly, looked at Zhao Tai Lai and the others, and said, "Leave it to him." "Leader." Zhao Tai Lai shouted. Qin Feiyong said, "I'll say it again, there is no Vanga League now, let alone a leader." "Yes." Zhao Tai Lai hurriedly bowed and responded. "Hurry up," Qin Feiyong urged. Zhao Tai Lai clenched his fists, finally gritted his teeth, took out the dark demon blade, and handed it to Willow Tree. The 9 deacons also took out their respective artifacts one after another. There were swords, spears, sticks and everything. Willow Tree happily took all the artifacts and then handed them to Qin Feiyong. Qin Feiyong waved his hand and said, "Give them all to Lu Hong later. If you need them in the future, ask her for them." "Okay." Willow Tree nodded. In addition, Qin Feiyong looked at Ning Mingi again and said, "Later, give all the herbs of your Vanga League to Dan Wangkai." Dan Wangkai? Ning Mingi was stunned. Qin Feiyong said, "He's in charge of alchemy. If you need any elixirs in the future, look for him." "Yes." Ning Mingi nodded. He remembered the 2 names Lu Hong and Dan Wangkai in his heart. "Because
One was in charge of artifacts, the other was in charge of herbs. There was no suspense. These two people must be deeply trusted by the young master. He had to curry favor with them in the future. Qin Feiyong suddenly thought of something, looked at Ning Mingi and asked, "By the way, do you have any extra divine arts?" Divine arts? Ning Mingi was stunned, shook his head and said, "No, divine arts are as rare as artifacts. Half of us don't have any divine arts yet." "Really?" Qin Feiyong said. Ning Mingi forced a smile and said, "How would I dare to lie to you now?" Qin Feiyong said, "Give your Chenkuan bags to Dan Wangkai later. In the future, all the resources will be distributed uniformly." "Yes." Ning Mingi nodded. The group of people felt extremely bitter. The divine artifact was gone. The herbs were gone. Now, even his Chenkuan bag was gone. He was truly in a sorry state. Be content with what you have. At least for now you're all alive. Furthermore, you're all able to leave the Black Tortoise realm. Qin Feiyong said lightly. Yeah, at least he's still alive. The group of people nodded and smiled bitterly. But suddenly, everyone was stunned. They raised their heads and looked at Qin Feiyong. Ning Mingi's breathing quickened as he said, "Young master, what did you just say? Can you repeat that?" Willow Tree also looked at Qin Feiyong in surprise. When the mysterious man appeared, he happened to be in Tianyang City, so he did not know. "Leave the Black Tortoise realm," Qin Feiyong said. "Leave the Black Tortoise realm?" Ning Mingi was stunned. He turned to Zhao Tai-Lai and asked, "Am I hallucinating?" "No. We heard it too," Zhao Tai-Lai said. Swish. Then. The group of people looked at Qin Feiyong again with unconcealable excitement and asked, "Young master, is what you said true?" Willow Tree was the same. He looked at Qin Feiyong and said, "Can we really leave the Black Tortoise realm?" "Yes." Qin Feiyong nodded to Willow Tree, then looked at Ning Mingi and the others and said, "This is why I disbanded the Vanga League." How is this possible? Since ancient times, countless people have tried to leave the Black Tortoise realm, but no one has succeeded. How did you do it? Ning Mingi said. To leave the Black Tortoise realm, the first thing to do is to break the Devil Mark. And I already have a way to break the Devil Mark. After the Tianyang Empire is dealt with, I will make the arrangements. You can't tell anyone about this. Qin Feiyong warned. Yes, yes, yes. The group of people nodded repeatedly. Willow Tree looked at Qin Feiyong and stammered, "Young master, Don't worry. If the method really works, I will be the first to help you break the Devil Mark." Qin Feiyong said with a smile. "Thank you, young master." Willow Tree's face was filled with ecstasy, and his eyes were filled with gratitude. "That's enough. Quickly rest up. There's still a tough battle to come," Qin Feiyong said with a smile. "Yes." The group of people replied respectfully. Qin Feiyong smiled and looked at Willow Tree. "Give me the Divine Phoenix Blade." Willow Tree immediately handed it over with both hands. Qin Feiyong grabbed the Divine Phoenix Blade and left the castle, appearing at the bridge. When the Palace Master of Fengtian Palace saw the Divine Phoenix Blade, his eyes lit up and he said, "Brother Qin, this divine weapon is not simple." Qin Feiyong rubbed the Divine Phoenix Blade and said with a smile, "I heard that this Divine Phoenix Blade can automatically protect its owner. I think its grade shouldn't be low." "Of course not. Because this Divine Phoenix Blade is the same as my Azure Light Sword, it has already given birth to an artifact spirit. Only a divine weapon with an artifact spirit will automatically protect its owner," the Palace Master of Fengtian Palace said. Artifact spirit? Qin Feiyong was stunned. Yes. However, whether it is the Divine Phoenix Blade or the Azure Light Sword, the artifact spirit's consciousness is very weak, like a newborn baby. The Palace Master of Fengtian Palace said. Qin Feiyong's eyes lit up and he said, "Does that mean my Cheng Shui and the castle have already given birth to artifact spirits?" "Of course. Otherwise, how could they be so strong?" The Palace Master of Fengtian Palace said with certainty. "Then why can't I feel the artifact spirit's existence?" Qin Feiyong asked. "I don't know. Maybe they don't want you to know. Or maybe they are sealed by something." The Palace Master of Fengtian Palace shook his head. "Sealed?" Qin Feiyong was stunned. There seemed to be a seal in the castle. Qin Feiyang looked down at the divine phoenix blade and said suspiciously, "That's strange. When the willow tree destroyed Ningmingi's Qi, why didn't it protect its owner?" I was also puzzled at first. But after thinking about it carefully, I think it might have something to do with Chang Shui. Although the artifact spirit will protect its owner, it can also sense danger. So, according to my speculation, Chang Shui must have scared it, so it didn't awaken and help Ning Mingi. The palace master of Fengtian Palace said. Qin Feiyang nodded and asked suspiciously, "Then how do I communicate with the artifact spirit?" The palace master of Fengtian Palace said, "After you drip your blood on it, you will be able to sense the artifact spirit's existence, but you won't be able to communicate with it because its consciousness is still very weak." Qin Feiyang immediately cut his finger and dripped a drop of purple gold dragon blood on the blade. Bas! The divine phoenix blade immediately shook and flew out of his hand, floating in front of Qin Feiyang, emitting a blurry purple gold divine light. After the recognition was successful, the purple gold divine light quickly faded away. Then, the divine phoenix blade started to dance around Qin Feiyang. At first glance, it looked like a happy and excited child. "What's going on? It actually seemed to like you a lot." The palace master of Fengtian Palace was stunned. "It likes me?" Qin Feiyang was startled. He closed his eyes and calmed his mind. Soon, inside the divine phoenix blade, he could sense a weak fluctuation of emotions. There was indeed a hint of joy in this emotion. "I understand. It must be because of your purple gold dragon blood." The palace master of Fengtian Palace suddenly said. "What do you mean?" Qin Feiyang was suspicious. Artifact spirits need to be nurtured with bloodline power and divine power. The better the bloodline power and divine power, the more helpful it is for their growth. Your purple gold dragon blood is the bloodline power of the divine dragon. It is extremely noble. Any artifact spirit would like it. The palace master of Fengtian Palace laughed. "I see." Qin Feiyang nodded, looked at the divine phoenix blade, and said with a smile, "You can stay in my Qi ocean from now on." Whoosh! Before he finished speaking, the divine phoenix blade turned into a ray of light and directly entered Qin Feiyang's Qi ocean, floating in it. Qin Feiyang looked inside his Qi ocean and looked at the divine phoenix blade. Suddenly, a wisp of fiery red sword Qi flew out from the divine phoenix blade and happily flew around Qin Feiyang's Qi ocean. The fluctuation of emotions was even more obvious. "This is the artifact spirit?" Qin Feiyang was startled. Originally, he thought that it might be a porcelain doll-like child, but he didn't expect it to be a wisp of sword Qi. But not long later, the sword Qi suddenly changed again. Very quickly. A blurry little person actually appeared in front of Qin Feiyang's line of sight. This little person was only the size of a pinky finger. It did not have a body of flesh and blood, nor did it have a face. It only had an outline. It can even change shape? Qin Feiyang was surprised. He tried to communicate with the little person, but the little person did not respond to him and kept jumping around happily in his Qi ocean. Sometimes it turned into sword Qi. Sometimes it turned into a human form. It gave people the feeling that it was a child who had finally found a playground that it liked. However, the artifact spirit still did not dare to approach Chang Shui. Chang Shui was also in Qin Feiyang's Qi ocean. The artifact spirit seemed to be a little afraid. "Chang Shui, you can't bully our new friend." Qin Feiyang observed for a moment and said to Chang Shui with a smile. Then his mind withdrew from the Qi ocean and looked at the palace master of Fengtian Palace with a smile. "It really likes me." The palace master of Fengtian Palace looked a little envious. "Why don't you give me the azure light sword, and I'll help you nourish it with the purple gold dragon blood and purple gold dragon Qi." Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes and teased. When the palace master of Fengtian Palace heard this, he immediately pushed away and kept a distance of 5 or 6 meters from Qin Feiyang. He said vigilantly, "Don't even think about it. If he gave it to this guy, it would be like throwing a meat bun at a dog." He was not that stupid. Qin Feiyang said with a smile, "I'm just joking. Don't get too excited." "Do I look like I'm excited? I'm obviously nervous." The palace master of Fengtian Palace rolled his eyes. Qin Feiyang shook his head and said with a smile, "By the way, can all artifacts give birth to artifact spirits?" "How is that possible?"
You have to know that artifacts that give birth to artifact spirits will constantly evolve as the artifact spirits grow. In other words, this artifact spirit will become stronger and stronger. If artifacts can be born, then wouldn't the world be in chaos? Whether it's artifact spirits or something else such as tree spirits, flower spirits, and so on, they all have to go through some special processes and factors to be born.
Let me put it this way.
It's lucky if one artifact spirit can be born in 100,000 artifacts.
The Palace Master of Fengtian Palace said. I see.
I originally thought that even if artifacts give birth to artifact spirits, they won't grow.
I even thought that artifact spirits are innate.
But in the end, that's not the case. I have to say, in the path of cultivation, there's always a higher mountain. If you don't step into a certain realm, you'll never know what's above it.
Qin Feiyang said with emotion.
There are also people who can refine artifacts with innate artifact spirits. But in this world, I'm afraid you won't find such a person.
But there's one thing that I agree with.
Every time we step into a new realm, we will learn some new things and knowledge. This is the wonder of cultivation. It's never too old to learn. The Palace Master of Fengtian Palace smiled.
Chapter 1623.
The Palace Master of Fengtian Palace took a deep look at Qin Feiyang. He was getting more and more curious. What exactly happened to Qin Feiyang? Why was he so indifferent to fame and fortune at such a young age? Buzz! Suddenly, Qin Feiyang's image crystal rang. Is it Mu Qing? The Palace Master of Fengtian Palace was taken aback and asked. Qin Feiyang said, most likely it should be him. After saying that, he took out the image crystal. An illusionary figure swiftly appeared. Who else could it be but Mu Qing? Why are you still in the desert? Qin Feiyang frowned. Because the scene behind Mu Qing was the desert. From this it could be seen. They had not left the desert yet. Mu Tianyang appeared beside Mu Qing and looked at Qin Feiyang. Is there no room for negotiation? Obviously. Mu Qing had already known through the heavenly eye that Qin Feiyang had arrived at the River of Erosion. Originally, they wanted to enter the Devil's Land before Qin Feiyang. But now it was obviously impossible. Qin Feiyang pondered for a while and nodded. Yes, but I don't know if you can do it. Say it. Mu Tianyang said. Let's join forces to destroy the Tianyang Empire. As for the grudges between us, we can wait until we leave the Black Tortoise realm and slowly settle it. Qin Feiyang said. Join forces with you to destroy our Tianyang Empire? Do you think we are idiots? How could we do such a stupid thing? Mu Qing said angrily. Don't say it so righteously. I think those people in the Tianyang Empire don't treat you very well, and even reject you. Qin Feiyang said. Mu Qing's eyes darkened. It seems that it is as I expected. Actually, thinking about it, although they are your clansmen, they have already created a brand new Tianyang Empire in the Black Tortoise realm. If they can leave the Black Tortoise realm, it will be a different story. But they can't leave. Thus, they simply do not care about the life and death of you two clansmen. After Qin Feiyang finished speaking, he looked at Mu Tianyang and said, even though you used to be the war god. Mu Tianyang sighed and nodded. You're right. I've had enough of these people. For you to say that, it means that they have bullied you a lot. You are Mu Tianyang, a war god, yet you are being bullied by a bunch of clowns. Even I feel bad for you. Qin Feiyang sighed. Don't be so fake. Don't you want to get rid of the Heavenly Sun Empire first before getting rid of me and the Lord? Mu Qing's face was full of disdain. Why don't you believe me? I know my limits. It's not that easy to kill the two of you. My initial plan was only to get rid of the Heavenly Sun Empire here. Qin Feiyang said helplessly. It's pointless to say more. Mu Qing snorted and immediately turned off the image crystal. The two of them were indeed standing in the air above the desert. In front of them was the undead mountain range. Mu Qing kept the image crystal and looked at Mu Tianyang. Lord, what should we do now? Mu Tianyang shook his head. For a moment, there was nothing he could do. You can't go any further. Suddenly, a majestic voice sounded out of thin air. Who is it? The two of them were shocked and quickly scanned their surroundings.
but there was not a single shadow around. Is it an illusion? The two of them looked at each other. However, just as they retracted their gaze, they suddenly looked at the void on their left. There was a giant python floating there. You are. Mu Qianyang's eyes widened in anger. Mu Qing was also shocked. Greetings, Lord Guardian. The next moment, the two of them bowed in unison. The giant python looked at the two of them and sneered. You have a good memory. You actually still remember me. Senior's power, I dare not forget. Mu Qing said. The giant python had appeared when Qin Feiyang and Mu Tianyang were fighting. Of course he knew. Mu Tianyang looked up at the giant python and asked suspiciously, Lord, you just said that we can't go any further. Why is that? Wait a minute. The giant python glanced at the void of the desert behind them and said coldly, I don't like being spied on. Get out immediately. Mu Tianyang and Mu Qing turned their heads and looked over in surprise. Before his voice faded, a middle-aged man appeared and hurriedly ran to the front of the giant python. He respectfully prostrated himself in the void and said, Greetings, Lord Guardian. It's him? Mu Tianyang raised his eyebrows. This person was the emperor who had expelled him and Mu Qing previously. He actually followed them? At this moment, in front of the Guardian, this emperor's previous domineering and majestic aura had disappeared. He was like a pitiful dog wagging its tail. Mu Tianyang's eyes were full of disdain. He looked at Mu Qing and said, Why don't you use the omniscient eye to track his whereabouts? My attention is all on Qin Feiyang. I don't have the mood to care about him. Mu Qing smiled bitterly. Get up, the giant python said. Yes. The middle-aged man got up and stood aside respectfully. The giant python glanced at Mu Tianyang and Mu Qing and said, I don't want you to continue because there's an ambush ahead. Ambush? Who's ambushing? Qin Feiyang? But isn't Qin Feiyang in the river of bone erosion now? Mu Qing was surprised. It's Qin Feiyang. He and the palace master of the Celestial Palace did go to the river of bone erosion, but the others of the Celestial Palace stayed at the entrance. Once you go there, you'll definitely die. The giant python said. What? Mu Tianyang and the other two's expressions changed. The middle-aged man glared at Mu Qing and said, Don't you have the omniscient eye? Why don't you check their whereabouts? Nonsense. If I want to check, I'll check on the two main figures, Qin Feiyang and the palace master of the Celestial Palace. Why should I check on the others? Is there something wrong with your brain? If you're so arrogant, why don't I see you being arrogant in front of Qin Feiyang? If you have the guts, go ahead. Mu Qing said angrily. The middle-aged man was so angry that his body trembled violently. Well said. Mu Tianyang laughed secretly. The giant python looked at the three and said angrily, Shut up. Mu Qing looked coldly at the middle-aged man in her eyes, then looked at the giant python and asked in confusion, Senior, may I ask why you want to help us? The giant python snorted and said, Of course it's to deal with Qin Feiyang. What? Senior also has a grudge with Qin Feiyang. Mu Qing was surprised. Yes. The giant python nodded. That's not right. With Senior's strength, it's not easy to kill Qin Feiyang. Why do you need our help? Mu Qing said suspiciously. As soon as the giant python heard this, it immediately remembered the scene that happened in front of the entrance, and its eyes were full of hostility. Mu Qing, it's very strong. Back then, Qin Batian wanted to force his way from the second floor to the first floor because of a woman, and he was almost killed by it. So don't ask what you shouldn't ask. Just do as you're told. Mu Tianyang said secretly. What? You saw him back then? Mu Qing's expression changed. Yes. Mu Tianyang nodded. Mu Qing's heart skipped a beat, and she hurriedly said, Senior, what do you want us to do? Please tell us. The giant python looked at Mu Qing and said, You're quite interesting. You're as bold as Qin Feiyang. Senior, please forgive me. Mu Qing hurriedly said, thinking that the giant python was angry. I just praised you, and now you immediately show a cowardly and incompetent look. It seems that there is still a gap between you and Qin Feiyang. But there's one thing that you're better than Qin Feiyang. The giant python said. Senior, please tell me. Mu Qing said. You're more sensible than him. I like young people like you. The giant python laughed. Senior's words have truly shocked this junior. Mu Qing said. Do you want to live? The giant python looked at the three of them and said. The three of them nodded at the same time. Okay. I'll take you to a place later. Even if Qin Fei Yang has the ability to reach the heavens, he won't be able to find you. The giant python said confidently. Thank you, my lord. Thank you, senior. The three of them hurriedly thanked it. The giant python glanced at the undead mountain range, and a rule force suddenly fell from the sky and blasted toward a mountain in the distance. The target was the cedar trees that surrounded Zhuge Mingyang. As soon as they sensed the rule force, those cedar trees immediately scattered. What's the situation? Zhuge Mingyang was stunned. Hurry up and come over here. The giant python shouted. This is... Zhuge Mingyang's eyes trembled, and he hurriedly flew toward the giant python. What happened just now? Why did the rule force descend? At the same time. The woman hiding in the space divine object looked at the undead mountain range in surprise. The second elder and the others behind her were also horrified. Suddenly, the black-robed old man's eyes trembled. He looked at the woman and said cautiously, Madam, could it be that the guardian has descended? Guardian. The woman's body trembled and nodded. It must be it because only it can control the rule force. Quickly inform Qin Fei Yang and the others. The black-robed old man immediately took out an image crystal and sent a message to the palace master of Fengtian Palace. What? The guardian has appeared. When he heard the news, the palace master of Fengtian Palace was also shocked. But Qin Fei Yang, who was at the side, had a trace of hostility in his eyes. This damned beast was really like a lingering spirit that refused to disperse. He looked at the black-robed old man and asked, Is Mu Tianyang and the others with it? I don't know. We don't dare to go out now. The black-robed old man shook his head. Qin Fei Yang's face sank. He immediately opened the portal and descended at the entrance, then rushed toward the desert like lightning. Yu Huang also chased after him. Brother Qin, don't go. The palace master of Fengtian Palace followed and hurriedly shouted. The woman also appeared from the space divine object. She looked in the direction of the desert with a face full of horror. The guardian actually appeared. Why was that? Soon, Qin Fei Yang rushed to the sky above the cedar forest. Seeing that Zhuge Mingyang had disappeared, he was furious. Seeing that Qin Fei Yang was about to continue to rush over, Yu Huang hurriedly stretched out his tail and pulled Qin Fei Yang, shouting, Brat Qin, bear with it for a while. Now you don't have the blood chi pearl, so you can't provoke it. The plan was about to succeed, but it completely disrupted it. How can I bear it? Qin Fei Yang said angrily. Brother Qin, it is the guardian, the master of this miracle, the sky here. You can't beat it. Forget it. The palace master of Fengtian Palace also flew over and persuaded. That's right. You are an ant, I am the sky. You are an ant. How can you beat me, the sky? Before the palace master of Fengtian Palace finished speaking, the giant python's voice sounded in the sky. Then, the giant python brought Zhuge Mingyang, Mu Tianyang, Mu Qing, and the middle-aged man to the void above. Chapter 1624. Greetings, Lord Guardian. The palace master of Fengtian Palace quickly knelt in the air and greeted respectfully. Fengtian Palace is quite bold. How dare you collude with Qin Fei Yang? The giant python said coldly. The palace master of Fengtian Palace turned pale when he heard that. He hurriedly said, I know my mistake. Please forgive me. Can't you have some backbone? Yu Huang raised his eyebrows. The palace master of Fengtian Palace transmitted his voice. This is a matter of whether I have backbone or not. You can leave the miracle site, but I can't. If I want to live, I have to treat it like an ancestor. After talking for so long, aren't you just afraid of death? Yu Huang looked at him with disdain. The palace master of Fengtian Palace didn't deny it. The giant python said, Since you know your mistake, shouldn't you know what to do? The palace master of Fengtian Palace was stunned. What should he do? Attack Qin Fei Yang? Wouldn't that be a dead end? Unless he could kill Qin Fei Yang now, the
the palace master of Fengtian Palace would definitely be in trouble. Qin Feiyong waved his hand and said, "This has nothing to do with you. Step aside." "Thank you, Brother Qin." The palace master of Fengtian Palace was grateful. "Aunt Tian." Qin Feiyong looked up at the giant python and sneered, "Do you really think you're a big shot? Kid, don't be arrogant." The giant python smiled coldly. "I'm arrogant? Who was the one who made trouble for me in the first place? I'll say it again. You have to pay the price for doing wrong." Qin Feiyong smiled coldly. With a clang, Chang Shui appeared. "I heard that your qi and blood pearl has been shattered and you can't revive Chang Shui and the ancient castle. Are you sure you want to fight with me?" The giant python sneered. Qin Feiyong glanced at Mu Tianyang and Mu Qing and said, "Did they tell you? Didn't you say it yourself? Why? Are you afraid that we'll tell others?" Mu Qing said, her face full of sarcasm. Qin Feiyong joked, "Then you must think that what I said is true?" "What do you mean? Could it be that the qi and blood pearl didn't shatter?" Mu Qing raised her eyebrows. "What do you think?" Qin Feiyong smiled playfully. Mu Qing stared coldly at Qin Feiyong, her eyes flickering. "Cut the crap. Since you've appeared, let's settle this once and for all. Let's see how powerful you are, Tian." Qin Feiyong turned his gaze towards the giant python and coldly shouted. The 6 elders, Willow Tree, Ning Mingi, and the others all appeared. A total of 60 false gods. Such a lineup could be said to be universally shocking. However, when they saw the guardians, Willow Tree and the others were all frightened out of their wits. The reputation of the guardians was like thunder to the ears. This was a fear that came from the depths of his soul. "Do you want to leave the Black Tortoise world? Do you want to leave the divine sight? If you do, then get rid of it with me because it is the obstacle for you to leave the Black Tortoise world." Qin Feiyong shouted secretly. The group of people perked up. "Why don't you try?" The guardians sneered, looking majestic without being angry. The pupils of the group of people constricted, and they were full of fear again. Qin Feiyong said, "Believe me, as long as Chang Shui is revived, killing it won't be a problem." "That's right. I've seen Chang Shui's power with my own eyes." Last time at the entrance, the fire dragon and the giant python joined forces, but they couldn't stop Chang Shui's edge. Yu Huang shouted secretly. "What? You've already fought with the fire dragon and the giant python?" Ning Mingi said in shock. "Yes. The fire dragon has been killed by Qin Boy, and the giant python has fled, so you don't have to be afraid of it at all." Yu Huang said. "The fire dragon has been killed?" The group of people was dumbfounded. "I don't want to say it a second time." Qin Feiyong shouted angrily. Willow Tree gritted his teeth and stepped in front of Qin Feiyong. He poured out his false god power without holding back and rushed toward Chang Shui. Yu Huang followed closely behind. Looking at Yu Huang and Willow Tree, Ning Mingi gritted his teeth and said, "Everyone, if we don't listen to the young master, we will die anyway. Why don't we go crazy with him?" Zhao Tai nodded. "Then let's go crazy." The second elder and the others also shouted. Boom! In an instant, foe gods roared as they charged forward, turning into huge waves that surged toward pale snow. 60 false gods revived Chang Shui at the same time. What kind of concept was that? Clang! In the blink of an eye, Chang Shui, which was floating above Qin Feiyong's head, released a bright divine light. An aura that could destroy the world roared in all directions. The sharp edge tore the sky and split the earth. The void above was shattered and turned into nothingness. Below, the cedars also felt a fatal danger and quickly pulled up from the ground and fled into the distance. The middle-aged man sneered and said, "How dare you fight back in the face of a guardian? You really don't know what death is." "Shut up. You don't know Qin Feiyong at all. He never does anything that he's not confident in. Since he dares to fight back, it means that he has the confidence." Mu Tianyang shouted inwardly. "I really underestimated this kid's courage." The palace master of the Palace of Heaven, who had retreated far away, was also shocked. He dared to fight back in the face of a guardian? Heavens! How could there be such a terrifying young man? "Husband, what should we do? Should we help Qin Feiyong or the guardian?"
The woman flew to the palace master of the Palace of Heaven and asked secretly.
What do you think, madam?
The palace master of the Palace of Heaven asked.
Qin Feiyang is so confident and fearless. It shows how much he trusts Chang Xue.
But his current opponent is after all the guardian of the miracle.
This beast has the means to control the rule force. Chang Xue may not be able to kill it. I really don't know what to choose. And at this time, we can't make a decision casually. Because if we make the wrong choice, the Palace of Heaven will face a disaster.
The woman sighed.
Yes, we can't offend Qin Feiyang.
And we can't offend the guardian. Now we can only wait and see. If Chang Xue can really threaten the guardian, then we...
The palace master of the Palace of Heaven hesitated and then made up his mind.
He gritted his teeth and said, "We'll help Qin Feiyang."
Yes.
The woman nodded. In the blink of an eye. Seeing Ning Mingyi and the others decisively helping Qin Feiyang, the giant python suddenly exuded a shocking murderous aura. "If you want to die, this lord will fulfill your wish."
Before its voice faded away,
a wave of rule force descended from the sky and blasted towards the group of people. Everyone's eyes suddenly had a trace of panic. "Don't be afraid. Believe in the young master. Believe in Chang Xue."
Willow Tree roared.
Qin Feiyang raised his head and looked at the rule force. Not only was there no fear in his eyes, but it was burning with the flames of war.
It seems that the lesson last time wasn't enough. He smiled proudly.
With a wave of his arm, Chang Xue carried a monstrous aura, smashing the sky and blasted towards the rule force.
This is the crucial moment. Can pale snow suppress the power of rule force?
The palace master of the Palace of Heaven narrowed his eyes and stared at Chang Xue. There was a bit of anxiety and expectation in his eyes. Ning Mingyi and the others were also very nervous. But at the same time, they also worked harder to revive Chang Xue. They didn't hold back at all with the power of the false god.
Clang!
Chang Xue's power became more and more terrifying, almost reaching the level of Qin Feiyang's qi and blood pearl to revive Chang Xue last time. There was a loud bang. Chang Xue and the rule force finally collided.
Gotcha! Woo-woo!
An apocalyptic aura surged out in all directions with a force that could topple mountains and overturn seas. The void within thousands of miles was instantly annihilated and turned into chaos. The sky also changed color. The wind blew, lightning flashed, and thunder rumbled. It was as if doomsday was coming. Quickly suppress Chang Xue. Quickly suppress the rule force. People on both sides roared in their hearts. Mu Tianyang, Mu Qing, the middle-aged man, and Zhuge Mingyang naturally hoped that the rule force could suppress Chang Xue. Willow Tree and the others certainly hoped that Chang Xue could suppress the rule force.
Clang! Boom!
Chang Xue and the rule force continued to collide. Everyone didn't dare to blink, afraid that they would miss the most critical scene. The power that Chang Xue is emitting now has far surpassed the fully revived Azure Light Sword and Divine Phoenix Blade. Maybe, it can really suppress the rule force. The palace master of the Palace of Heaven said excitedly. The results are not out yet.
We can't jump to conclusions.
The woman secretly said. But before her voice died away, following an earth-shaking rumble, the power of the law shattered.
What?
The middle-aged man jumped up directly. The rule force was no match? Mu Tianyang, Mu Qing, and Zhuge Mingyang's faces instantly sank. Even the rule force couldn't stop Chang Xue? This had far exceeded their imagination. Ning Mingyi and the others, Willow Tree, and Yu Huang were naturally excited. Each of them seemed to have been injected with chicken blood. There was no longer fear in their eyes. Instead, they looked at the giant python with provocation and eagerness. Help Qin Feiyang. The palace master of Fengtian Palace looked at this scene and decisively made a choice. He turned into a stream of light and rushed to Qin Feiyang's side with the woman roaring, "Brother Qin, we are here to help you."
Oh no!
The middle-aged man's eyelids twitched. The giant python's expression was also extremely ugly. Willow Tree glanced at the palace master of Fengtian Palace and sneered, "At least you have a good eye." The palace master of Fengtian Palace smiled embarrassedly. With a wave of his hand, all the fake gods of Fengtian Palace appeared in an instant, including his two sons. The palace master of Fengtian Palace shouted, "Quick, revive Chang Xue with everyone."
Boom! Waves of fake god power roared out crazily and rushed into Chang Shui. Clang! With the addition of the Palace Master of Fengtian Palace, Chang Shui's power doubled in an instant. The terrifying sharpness was like the scythe of the Grim Reaper, crazily harvesting everything. The entire departed Soul Mountain was destroyed in an instant. 1, 5, 20, 40, 50. Heavens, the Palace Master of Fengtian Palace also has 50 fake gods. Mu Qing's heart skipped a beat. 50 plus 60, in other words, Qin Feiyong now had a total of 110 fake gods by his side. Good, very good. Today, you will follow me to break this sky, break the rules of this black tortoise world, and then I will treat you to snake soup. Qin Feiyong laughed. 110 fake gods should be enough to fully revive Chang Shui. Snake soup? Everyone was stunned for a moment, then looked at the giant python in unison, their eyes full of sneers. This giant python was a true divine beast, and they had never tasted snake soup before. Kill. Chapter 1625. The giant python's eyes darkened, and with Mu Tianyang and the other two and Zhuge Mingyang, it instantly disappeared into the void. Leaving just like that? Qin Feiyong was taken aback and angrily shouted, "Even if you want to leave, you have to leave something for me." Chang Shui angrily slashed out. In the void, a pool of blood emerged. Following closely, a thick giant tail fell from the void. Qin Feiyong, this sovereign will definitely not let you go, just you wait. The giant python's angry roar suddenly echoed in the void, and then it never appeared again. This? Ning Mingyi and the others looked at each other. The dignified guardian of the miracle actually chose to escape? We won. Ha ha. The guardian of the miracle has been defeated by us. I really didn't even dream of it. Then, the group of people cheered, unprecedentedly excited. We let it run away. What's there to be excited about? Willow Tree raised its eyebrows. Yes. As long as we don't kill it, we will always be in danger. Yu Huang sighed. Willow Tree and Yo Huang's words were like a basin of bone-piercing cold water, splashing Ning Mingyi and the others. They all fell silent, their faces full of worry. Don't worry too much. As long as you follow me, even if it appears, it won't dare to do anything to you. The most important thing to confirm is whether Mu Tianyang and the others are in the Black Tortoise realm right now? Qin Feiyong said. Willow Tree said, I'm afraid they are no longer here after all, it is the guardian of this place, it can definitely erase the devil imprint. The people of the Tianyang Empire are really lucky. Qin Feiyong was a little angry. Let's not worry about it for now. Yu Huang rolled his eyes, looked at the giant tail, and said with a sneaky smile, Didn't you just say that you would treat us to snake soup? Everyone's eyes lit up. This giant python was a divine beast, and its flesh was undoubtedly a great supplement for everyone. Eating it would definitely benefit them greatly. I am a man of my word. Willow Tree, go and bring it over. Prepare a big pot of stew. Qin Feiyong smiled. Lu Mu immediately ran over and picked up the giant tail. He ran in front of Qin Feiyong and chuckled. The weight is not bad. This giant tail was more than 10 meters long and half as thick as a dustpan. It was more than enough for everyone to eat their fill. Where should I stew it? Yu Huang asked. Qin Feiyong lowered his head and pondered. Doesn't Ling Yunfei also have an ancient castle? Let's just go to his castle. This way, we can also prevent the giant python from attacking everyone. Yu Huang said. No need. Let's find a place with beautiful scenery nearby and start the stew. Qin Feiyong waved his hand. This is too crazy. What if the giant python is hiding in the dark and spying on us? Yu Huang was speechless. I wanted to see us and piss it off. Qin Feiyong sneered. Everyone looked at each other and smiled helplessly. However, this pot of snake stew was really worth looking forward to. I know a place with beautiful scenery. There is a river next to it and there are many spirit essences and herbs around. Palace Master Fengtian smiled. Let's go to the place you mentioned. Lead the way. Qin Feiyong said. Palace Master Fengtian opened a portal. A group of people turned into streams of light and rushed in like lightning. In the depths of the desert, the storm whistled and sand filled the sky.
Somewhere in the void. Mu Tianyang, Mu Qing, the middle-aged man and Zhuge Mingyang stood together and looked at the giant python opposite them. The giant python had lost its giant tail and its wound was still bleeding. At this moment, it looked in the direction of the dead spirit mountain and was silent. Its pair of eyes were full of ferocity. Zhuge Mingyang said indifferently, "The guardian of the miracle is just a..." Whoosh! The giant python turned its head and looked at Zhuge Mingyang. There was a fierce glint in its eyes. "What did you say? I dare you to say it again. Am I wrong? As the guardian of the miracle, you can't even defeat Qin Feiyong. Don't you find it embarrassing?" Zhuge Mingyang said. The giant python said angrily, "Believe it or not, I will kill you. You can only show off in front of us. But to be honest, if you can't control the rule force, I won't be afraid of you. However, your rule force is only useful to us. It is useless to Qin Feiyong." Zhuge Mingyang sneered. Mu Tianyang and the other two looked at Zhuge Mingyang in disbelief. This guy actually dared to mock the guardian? Who gave him the guts? The huge python looked at Zhuge Mingyang sinisterly. In the end, it actually endured it and snorted coldly. "In this divine sight, I have 10,000 ways to kill Qin Feiyong. However, I do not dare to do so." "Why?" Zhuge Mingyang was stunned and looked at it suspiciously. The giant python said, "Because the existence above is very interested in him. It even clearly said that you are not allowed to kill him." The existence above? The four of them looked at each other. Could it be the creator of the miracle? The giant python said, "It is not the creator, but it is similar to the creator of the miracle. It is an existence that you dare not provoke." The four of them felt their hearts sink. Mu Tianyang said, "Then why didn't the one above let you kill Qin Feiyong? Is it because it has its eyes on Qin Feiyong, or does it have other motives? If it had other motives, Qin Feiyong would definitely die. Because being targeted by such an existence comparable to the creator would definitely not have a good ending. But if this big shot had its eyes on Qin Feiyong, then the situation would be bad for them. Because in this way, Qin Feiyong would have a terrifying backer. I don't know its motives. If it doesn't say, I don't dare to ask." However, from its eyes, I can vaguely tell that it doesn't have its eyes on Qin Feiyong. It just finds it interesting and fun. The giant python shook its head. Interesting. Fun. The four of them were speechless. Qin Feiyong was already so strong, and it was called interesting? Just how bored was this so-called big shot? The middle-aged man looked at the giant python and asked carefully, "Sir, may I ask, what should we do now?" The so-called "we" naturally did not include the giant python. The giant python could leave the black tortoise world at any time. But Mu Tianyang, Mu Qing, Zhuge Mingyang, and the middle-aged man could not do anything. Especially the middle-aged man. Being controlled by the devil mark, even if the exit was in front of him, he did not dare to leave the black tortoise world. The giant python glanced at the four of them and remained silent. Zhuge Mingyang frowned and looked at the giant python. "You should be able to take us out of the black tortoise world directly, right?" The giant python glanced at Zhuge Mingyang, Mu Tianyang, and Mu Qing. "I can take the three of you because your devil marks have not formed yet." The three of them sighed in relief. But the middle-aged man's face instantly paled. What the giant python meant was that he could not leave. Mu Qing said, "You are the guardian of this place. You should be able to remove the devil marks, right?" "I can't. Although I can control the power of the rules here and freely enter any place in the first and second level, the devil marks are outside of the rules. Only the big shots above can remove them. Similarly, there is an even more terrifying lightning punishment that only they can control," the giant python said. The middle-aged man said in despair, "Then I won't be able to leave for the rest of my life?" "Yes. Unless the creator and the others agree. However, I can take you to another place," the giant python said. "Where?" The middle-aged man was overjoyed. "You don't have to worry about that. Although I have agreed to help you, you have to show me the value of helping you," the giant python said. "Value?" The middle-aged man was stunned. What value could he have? If it was someone else, with his foundation, strength and financial resources, he would indeed be very valuable. But in front of the guardian, these were nothing at all. The middle-aged man helplessly transmitted his voice to Mu Tianyang. Help me. On what basis? Mu Tianyang sneered. We are your clansmen. The middle-aged man said angrily. Clansmen? When I asked you to go to the river of corrosion with me, why didn't you treat me as your clansman? Now that you are in trouble, you say that we are your clansmen. Don't you think it's ridiculous? Mu Tianyang mocked mercilessly. The middle-aged man was furious. He looked at the giant python and said, My lord, I know that my Tianyang empire is not strong enough, but I think there will be something I can help you with in the future. The giant python was silent. The middle-aged man looked at the giant python, feeling very nervous. The giant python suddenly said, Perhaps in the future, there will be something I can use you for. All right, I promise to help you. Thank you, my lord. The middle-aged man quickly knelt in the void and thanked it. Zhuge Mingyang looked at the middle-aged man and sneered. I didn't expect the people of the Tianyang Empire to be so cowardly. Mu Tianyang's face darkened. He said angrily, You can humiliate him, but you can't humiliate the Tianyang Empire. So what if I humiliate the Tianyang Empire? I want to humiliate you. What can you do to me? Do you think you are still the Mu Tianyang from 10,000 years ago? Even I, Zhuge Mingyang, can destroy you now. What are you so arrogant for? Zhuge Mingyang said with disdain. You? Mu Tianyang was furious. I don't want to talk nonsense with you. Because the current you is no longer qualified to stand with me. Zhuge Mingyang raised the corner of his mouth with extreme contempt. Seeing that Mu Tianyang was about to go berserk, Mu Qing quickly sent a voice transmission. Master, please calm down. It won't be too late to settle the score with him when you have recovered to your peak state. Mu Tianyang took a deep breath and swallowed his anger. But in his heart, it was extremely painful. First, it was Qin Feiyang. Now, it was Zhuge Mingyang. And they were all unscrupulously riding on his head and behaving atrociously. How could he, a god of war, be reduced to such a state? Angry. Aggrieved. Zhuge Mingyang glanced at him with disdain and looked at the giant python. There is something that I am puzzled about. When the Vanga League was captured by Qin Feiyang, why didn't you appear? I believe that the Vanga League's value is greater than the Tianyang Empire's. The Tianyang Empire naturally can't be compared to the Vanga League. But before that, I was always by the side of the big shot above. When I returned, the Vanga League had already been captured. The giant python said regretfully. What were you doing with him? Zhuge Mingyang was suspicious. Saving the fire dragon. The giant python said. Saving the fire dragon? What do you mean? Mu Tianyang was surprised. Qin Feiyang severely injured it. If it wasn't for the big shot above, it would have died. The giant python said. This, Mu Tianyang and Mu Qing looked at each other. Chapter 16:26. While they were talking, the python's lost tail had been repaired. Bastard! But suddenly, it roared. Zhuge Mingyang and the others were startled and looked at it suspiciously. The python waved its tail and the group of people disappeared. The next moment, they landed in the sky above a mountain. The mountains were endless. The mountains were majestic and magnificent. The mountain stream was lush and green. A wide river, like a giant dragon, crossed the north and south. The river water flowed slowly and was very clear. At this moment, beside the river, on a grassland, a few big square stones were piled into a stone stove with a diameter of more than 10 meters. On top of it, there was a big iron pot. The iron pot was filled with water. On the side, a group of people were surrounding a giant tail, and they were extremely busy. Some of them were scraping the snake scales on the giant tail with their artifacts. Some of them grabbed the artifacts and chopped the giant tail into palm-sized pieces, washed them with the river water and put them into the big iron pot. That's right. They were Qin Feiyang and the others. Qin Feiyang and Willow Tree didn't join in the fun. They stood aside and watched everyone busy with a smile. What are they doing? The middle-aged man looked at this scene in astonishment. Nonsense, obviously they are going to stew snake soup. Zhuge Mingyang rolled his eyes. Looking at the snake meat in the iron pot, he couldn't help but swallow his saliva. They are really going to stew it? And they are doing it so blatantly? The middle-aged man was stunned and glanced at the python. At this moment, the python was so angry that its body was trembling and its eyes were spitting fire. This guy really dares to do it. Mu Tianyang was speechless. To be honest, I also want to try it. Mu Qing muttered and only swallowed her saliva. The python suddenly glanced at Zhuge Mingyang and Mu Qing and said angrily, "What are you doing?" "Nothing." The two shook their heads quickly. The python said gloomily, "Then why do I hear the sound of saliva swallowing? Is there?" Both of them had innocent looks on their faces. Zhuge Mingyang said, "We are angry." Yes, yes. These bastards actually dared to brazenly stew your meat. This is simply unforgivable. Mu Qing also roared with indignation. Hey, 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 what are you all standing there for? We're all old friends, come down and try it together. Snake stew made from divine meat is a delicacy that is hard to come by in 100,000 years. Qin Feiyong raised his head and looked at the giant python, Zhuge Mingyang, and the others as he grinned. The giant python's aura was not concealed at all. Therefore, as soon as the giant python appeared, everyone noticed it. However, they didn't pay any attention to it and continued to do their own things, angering this beast to death. Hearing Qin Feiyong's words, the giant python was furious. But suddenly, another gulping sound came from the side. The giant python flew into a rage out of humiliation, glaring at Zhuge Mingyang. Zhuge Mingyang quickly waved his hand and pointed at Mu Qing saying, "It's not me, it's him." "Don't slander me, it's obviously you," Mu Qing said angrily. "How can I possibly want to eat the guardian's meat? Isn't that disrespectful? Look at you, you're almost drooling, and you still say it's not you. To think that you're a man, you dare to do it but don't dare to admit it." Zhuge Mingyang despised him. Growl. However, before his voice died away, Zhuge Mingyang's stomach suddenly made a sound. Ah! Zhuge Mingyang was stunned. Mu Qing sneered and looked at the giant python, saying, "My lord, did you see that? It's him." The giant python stared at Zhuge Mingyang angrily. Zhuge Mingyang smiled awkwardly. It was embarrassing to be betrayed by his stomach. Qin Feiyong smiled playfully and asked, "Are you sure you don't want to come down and have a taste? It's a rare delicacy. You won't have it in the future if you miss it." The middle-aged man, Mu Tianyang, and Mu Qing's face darkened. "Can you stop tempting us? Can't you see that the main culprit is right next to us? Taste." "I definitely have to taste it." Zhuge Mingyang suddenly grinned and flew toward Qin Feiyong. What's going on? On the contrary, Qin Feiyong was stunned. Willow Tree and the others also looked at each other. Is there something wrong with this person's brain? Can't he see that the giant python is about to go berserk? Mu Tianyang and the other two were also shocked. By the way, Zhuge Mingyang suddenly stopped and looked up at the giant python and Mu Tianyang, saying, "You don't have to wait for me, go first." After that, he didn't care about the giant python's ugly expression and landed beside Qin Feiyong without looking back. "Are you okay?" Qin Feiyong looked at Zhuge Mingyang in shock. Zhuge Mingyang frowned and said, "You didn't ask me to come down, right? Why? Are you going back on your words now?" "No, no." Qin Feiyong quickly waved his hand and said, "I mean, aren't you afraid of offending the guardian? I have nothing to lose, so why should I be afraid?" Zhuge Mingyang grinned and walked to the iron pot, sniffing it and said, "Although it hasn't started cooking yet, I seem to smell the meat." Hearing this, Ning Mingi, the palace master of Fengtian Palace, and the others couldn't help but twitch their faces. Is there really nothing wrong with this person's brain? The giant python couldn't bear it anymore and roared in anger, "Go to hell, all of you!" A force of rules suddenly fell from the sky and blasted toward the group. "Protect the meat!" Zhuge Mingyang's face changed and quickly roared. Qin Feiyong raised his eyebrows. The giant python angrily attacked. This person's first thought was not to save his life, but to protect the meat? What was he trying to do? However, doubts were doubts. The meat really had to be protected, otherwise the snake soup would be ruined. Qin Feiyong waved his hand and brought everyone, including the snake meat and the big pot, into the castle. In an instant, only Zhuge Mingyang was left at the scene. "And me? How could you leave me behind?" Zhuge Mingyang said angrily. The giant python stared at Zhuge Mingyang and laughed sinisterly. You're a traitor, your death is not to be regretted. The force of rules carried a destructive aura and rushed toward Zhuge Mingyang. It's over. It's over. I shouldn't have been greedy. Qin Feiyong, I hate you, you actually tempted me like this. Zhuge Mingyang was furious. Then, he disappeared. Without the slightest sign. There was no trace of him, as if he had disappeared from the world. Mu Tianyang and the other two widened their eyes as they scanned the place where Zhuge Mingyang had disappeared. Their faces were filled with shock and doubt. Boom! The force of rules descended. Accompanied by a deafening sound, tens of thousands of miles were instantly razed to the ground. Not a single blade of grass was left. The giant python scanned the broken ground and coldly snorted, I'll let you be arrogant first. With that, he disappeared with Mu Tianyang and the other two. Not long after, Qin Feiyong, Willow Tree, Ning Mingi, and the palace master of Feng Tian Palace appeared. They looked up at the sky, then looked at the place where Zhuge Mingyang disappeared, their eyes full of surprise. Qin Feiyong said, use your divine sense to search. Swish! Before he finished, Zhuge Mingyang appeared out of thin air and said, you don't need to look, I'll come out myself. You also have a spatial divine object? Qin Feiyong raised his eyebrows. Zhuge Mingyang was stunned and asked suspiciously, did I say that I don't have one before? Did you have one before? Qin Feiyong frowned. Zhuge Mingyang said, then you didn't ask before. Qin Feiyong couldn't help but be angry. He really didn't know that Zhuge Mingyang had a spatial divine object. In the past, he also thought that Zhuge Mingyang couldn't have a spatial divine object. But now, how could he not be surprised that a spatial divine object suddenly appeared? After Qin Feiyong calmed down, he frowned and said, is this the reason why you dare to be so presumptuous in front of the giant python? Isn't that obvious? Zhuge Mingyang smiled. Qin Feiyong looked deeply at Zhuge Mingyang, then glanced at the broken ground, looked at the palace master of Feng Tian Palace and Ning Mingi, and said, let's change places. Let me think. Ning Mingi lowered his head and pondered for a while, then said, let's just go to our Aeon City. You mean the city outside the Soul-Sealing Valley? Qin Feiyong asked. Yes. Ning Mingi nodded. Okay. Qin Feiyong said. Willow Tree immediately opened the portal. They walked in one after another. Zhuge Mingyang's eyes flashed, and he also followed with a thick face. The city didn't change at all. When they arrived above the city, Ning Mingi directly landed on a square in the center of the city. The square was large and square, enough to accommodate tens of thousands of people. Qin Feiyong also landed in the center of the square, glanced around, and took everyone out of the castle, including the divine meat and the big iron pot, and said with a smile, continue. The group of people began to get busy again. Zhuge Mingyang looked around. Since he had nothing to do, he also went to help. Qin Feiyong glanced at Zhuge Mingyang, walked to a corner of the square, took out a tea table and 4 wooden chairs, and placed them on the ground. Qin Feiyong sat on one of the wooden chairs, took out the beauty of Qinghai, and began to make tea. This is... Ning Mingi looked at the beauty of Qinghai, and his eyes suddenly lit up. He asked, young master, is this a tea set made of Qinghai nephrite? Qin Feiyong nodded and said with a smile, do you also like to drink tea? Yes, of course I do. Ning Mingi nodded repeatedly. Willow Tree next to him glanced at the beauty of Qinghai, suspiciously and asked, what's different about this tea set made of Qinghai nephrite? As soon as I heard your words, I knew you were an outsider. This tea set made of Qinghai nephrite can completely remove the impurities in the tea leaves, making the tea more fragrant and stronger. Moreover, even the most ordinary tea leaves can be brewed with this Qinghai nephrite tea set. It can be brewed into the best tea. Ning Mingi said. I see. Willow Tree suddenly understood. Qin Feiyong smiled, looked up at the 3 of them, and said suspiciously, why are you all standing there? Sit down. This... Ning Mingi and Willow Tree looked at each other, looking a little scared. Qin Feiyong shook his head and smiled. You don't have to be so reserved with me. Just get along with each other like friends. Then we'll accept deferentially. Ning Mingi and the other 2 smiled and sat down one after another. Soon, the rich tea fragrance drifted out.
There was also a wisp of medicinal herbs in the tea fragrance. Ning Mingi sniffed and said in surprise, "Why does this tea have the smell of medicinal herbs? And it doesn't smell like an ordinary medicinal herb. This was given to me by an old senior. These tea leaves were put in the medicine field by him and carefully cultivated. There's not much of it produced in a year. It's very precious. Try it." Qin Feiyong poured a cup and handed it to Ning Mingi. Ning Mingi took the teacup and tasted it carefully. His eyes suddenly lit up and he nodded. "Good tea. I've lived for so many years, but this is the first time I've seen such special tea leaves." "Is it that exaggerated?" The palace master of Fengtian Palace glanced at him suspiciously, poured a cup and tasted it. His eyes lit up immediately, and he praised, "It's indeed the best of the best." Willow Tree also tasted it and wondered, "Why do I feel that it's no different from other tea leaves?" "You're a typical amateur." Ning Mingi shook his head, suddenly glanced at Zhuge Mingyang not far away, and whispered, "Young master, this Zhuge Mingyang is not simple, especially his space divine item." "What do you mean?" Chapter 1627. Previously, when the rule force fell, this person hid in the space divine item, but he was unharmed. What does this mean? It means that his space divine item can withstand the bombardment of the rule force. Ning Mingi said in a deep voice. Hearing this, Willow Tree and Palace Master Fengtian next to him were shocked. Before Ning Mingi spoke, they really didn't think about this problem. Willow Tree said in surprise, "The castle can also withstand the bombardment of the rule force. Could it be that his space divine item is on the same level as the castle?" Qin Feiyong drank tea with a faint smile on his face. He wasn't surprised by Ning Mingi's words. "How can you still smile? If Zhuge Mingyang's space divine item is on the same level as the castle, then it's not necessarily a good thing for us." Willow Tree frowned. Palace Master Fengtian and Ning Mingi also nodded, agreeing with Willow Tree's words. "Don't worry. Although I don't know what level his space divine item is, but I'm sure it's not comparable to the castle at all," Qin Feiyong said with a smile. "So confident?" The three of them were surprised. "There's something you don't know. The power that the castle is displaying now is not all," Qin Feiyong said. Because the castle still had the seal. When the seal was removed, it would undoubtedly be even more powerful. "Not all?" The three of them were shocked. Qin Feiyong asked, "I don't know if you have noticed a problem?" "What problem?" The three of them were suspicious. Qin Feiyong said, "Not long ago, your 110 pseudo-gods joined forces to revive Xueqi, but it didn't fully recover." "Yes. Not to mention ordinary divine artifacts. Even your Phoenix God Saber and Azure Light Sword can be fully recovered in an instant with the 110 pseudo-gods joining forces." Ning Mingi looked at Palace Master Fengtian and said. The Palace Master of Fengtian Palace frowned. He looked at Qin Feiyong and asked, "Has Xueqi really not fully recovered?" "I'm sure of that." "No." Willow Tree shook his head. "How so?" Palace Lord Fengtian asked. "Because Xueqi possesses the power of law. If it fully recovers, the power of law will appear. However, the power of the laws did not appear before," Willow Tree said. "The power of laws." Ning Mingi and Wang Chong looked at each other, their faces full of shock. Xueqi was actually a divine artifact with the power of law? If this was true, then this Xueqi had already surpassed the category of a divine artifact. Ning Mingi asked, "Does the ancient castle have the power of laws?" Willow Tree nodded. Ning Mingi and the Palace Master of Fengtian Palace sucked in a breath of cold air. No wonder these two divine artifacts were so heaven-defying. It turned out that they both had the power of laws. Qin Feiyong smiled and said, "So no matter how powerful Zhuge Mingyang's spatial divine artifact is, it definitely can't compare to the ancient castle and Xueqi." "Father." At this time, a purple-clothed youth ran over. It was Li Chong. The Palace Master of Fengtian Palace said, "Hurry up and greet Uncle Qin." "Uncle Qin?" Qin Feiyong was stunned. Ning Mingi and Willow Tree looked at each other. Li Chong himself was also stunned. Qin Feiyong came back to his senses, looked at the Palace Master of Fengtian Palace, and said, Are you talking about me? That's right. You and I address each other as equals. Li Chong is my son, so naturally, I have to call you uncle. The palace master of Fengtian Palace nodded. Qin Feiyang's face twitched and he hurriedly said, Don't. Brother Qin, do you dislike children? The palace master of Fengtian Palace said. No. In terms of age, I'm definitely younger than Li Chong. If you ask him to call me uncle, it will sound so awkward. Qin Feiyang smiled bitterly. No. Age doesn't mean anything, but seniority must not be messed up. Chang'er, hurry up. The palace master of Fengtian Palace shouted. Li Chong looked at Qin Feiyang, his face turning green and red, but he couldn't say anything. The palace master of Fengtian Palace said angrily, Do you need me to say it again? Li Chang's gaze trembled, and he hurriedly bowed and said, Li Chong greets Uncle Qin. Qin Feiyang smiled bitterly and waved his hand. No need to be so polite, no need to be so polite. For no reason, he actually had a nephew? And it was a nephew who was older than him? How funny was this? The palace master of Fengtian Palace looked at Qin Feiyang without blushing and said with a smile, Brother Qin, since you have recognized my son as your nephew, shouldn't there be a greeting gift? Qin Feiyang was stunned. Ning Mingyi said, Li Yun, so this is your purpose. You're very scheming. The palace master of Fengtian Palace said, Isn't it natural for an uncle to give his nephew a greeting gift? How can this be called scheming? Shameless. Ning Mingyi looked down on him. Cough. Qin Feiyang coughed dryly and said with a fake smile, It seems that no one has a rule that I have to give a greeting gift when I recognize a nephew. The palace master of Fengtian Palace's expression was a little ugly. He thought that Qin Feiyang would more or less give him some face. But he didn't expect him to reject him like this. Li Chong said unhappily, Father, can you stop fooling around? It's already embarrassing enough to call him uncle, and you're still licking your face to ask for a greeting gift. Even if you don't find it embarrassing, I do. Being reprimanded mercilessly by his own son in front of everyone, Li Yun felt even more embarrassed, and his expression was extremely awkward. He said impatiently, What are you here for? Tell me quickly. Li Chong said, Give me your alchemy fire. Alchemy fire? Qin Feiyang was stunned. That was right. In the past, Willow Tree said that Fengtian Palace and the Vanga League both had grade 8 alchemy fires. Li Yun frowned and said, What do you need alchemy fire for? To stew snake soup, of course. Can ordinary firewood cook the meat of a god? Li Chong was depressed. Why did this old man's IQ become lower and lower after meeting Qin Feiyang? Li Yun nodded in realization. With a thought, a cluster of alchemy fire flew out from between his brows and flew to Li Chong. Li Chong grabbed the alchemy fire and prepared to leave. Qin Feiyang suddenly said, Wait. Li Chong turned to look at him and asked suspiciously, Uncle Qin, do you have any other orders? Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows. As soon as he heard the term Uncle Qin, goosebumps appeared all over his body. He said, Let me see that alchemy fire. Oh no. This guy, don't tell me he's thinking about my alchemy fire. Li Yun's heart skipped a beat. Li Chong looked at Li Yun. Li Yun sighed helplessly and nodded to Li Chong. Then, Li Chong respectfully handed the alchemy fire to Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang grabbed the alchemy fire and sized it up. This alchemy fire was as big as a fist. The flames gushed out and emitted a heart-palpitating aura. This aura was comparable to a war emperor. Obviously. This was a cluster of grade 8 alchemy fire. Li Yun looked at Qin Feiyang and felt extremely nervous. After a long while, Qin Feiyang finally returned the alchemy fire to Li Chong. This made Li Yuan a little surprised. He thought that Qin Feiyang wanted to take it for himself and was even prepared to give it away. But he didn't expect that what he expected didn't happen. After Li Chong left, Qin Feiyang looked at Willow Tree and said, Come closer. Willow Tree put its ear close. Qin Feiyang muttered a few words. Okay. Willow Tree nodded, immediately got up, opened a portal, and walked in without looking back. What is Willow Tree doing? Li Yun asked suspiciously. Qin Feiyang smiled and looked at Ning Mingyi. You should also have alchemy fire. Ning Mingyi hesitated for a moment and nodded.
I do have it. I wonder why young master asked this? Qin Feiyong said. What grade? Grade 8. Ning Mingi said. Give it to me. Qin Feiyong stretched out his hand. This? Ning Mingi's expression froze. But in the end, he still handed over the alchemy fire. This alchemy fire, which he placed in his sea of consciousness, was the size of a fist and exuded an aura comparable to that of a combat emperor. Erase the blood contract. Qin Feiyong said with a smile. Young master, I've given you everything I have. Now, only this alchemy fire is left. Can't you leave some for me? Ning Mingi suddenly became anxious. Qin Feiyong said, this alchemy fire is more valuable in my hands. Grade 8 alchemy fire, no matter who has it, is valuable. Ning Mingi said aggrievedly. Qin Feiyong's face darkened as he said, do you remember what I said? You have to perform well to have a chance to get the divine phoenix saber back. Ning Mingi was about to cry. He helplessly erased the blood contract. Li Yun asked curiously, Brother Qin, are you also an alchemist? Yes. Qin Feiyong nodded. Ning Mingi and Li Yun looked at each other in surprise. Li Yun asked again, what's the level of your spiritual power? Level 45. Qin Feiyong looked down at the alchemy fire in his hand and answered without thinking. Level 45. Not bad. Both of them nodded. Level 45 spiritual power is only called not bad. Qin Feiyong was stunned. He looked up at the two of them in shock. Was there someone in the Vanga League and Fengtian Palace who had a higher spiritual power than him? Wait. Level 45. Ning Mingi and Li Yun also reacted and looked at Qin Feiyong in shock. Did they hear wrongly? It was actually level 45 spiritual power? Looking at the sudden change in their expressions, Qin Feiyong understood. He shook his head and smiled. He put away the alchemy fire, picked up the teacup, and continued to drink tea. Young master, are you sure you didn't make a mistake? Ning Mingi asked. No. I tested it the last time at the main tower. Qin Feiyong said. Both of their breathing became rapid. Li Yun quickly took out a spirit stone and said, can you test it again? Is this necessary? Qin Feiyong was doubtful. Yes. Both of them nodded at the same time. All right, I'll satisfy your curiosity. Qin Feiyong smiled, grabbed the spirit stone and entered a state of meditation. Bas. Very soon, the spirit stone began to vibrate. Not far away. When the people who were busy saw this scene, they all looked over curiously. But gradually, everyone's curiosity was replaced by shock, including Zhuge Mingyang. Ning Yiyang, Ning Yifeng, Zhao Shiming, and Li Chang's expressions were even more exaggerated. Level 30. Level 40. Level 45. It was actually level 45 spiritual power. Goodness! Was this a dream? This was the first time in their lives that they saw someone with such a high spiritual power. Ning Mingi and Li Yun were also dumbstruck. It turned out to be true. It was already enviable that his cultivation talent was so amazing. Even the heavenly path of alchemy was so terrifying. You're tuning in to the Xueqi's Martial Arts Saga YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.